Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 become the dragon of DXD wit. H Ultimate Omnitrix and got Harem of Rias and Grayfia. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Dimensional Fracture. The warehouse district of Bellwood shuddered as concrete erupted skyward. Twisted metal beams corkscrewing through the night air. 3 figures emerged from the billowing dust. 1 human, 2 decidedly not. I'm starting to think you guys don't understand the concept of a building permit, Ben Tennyson called out, the emerald glow of the Ultimatrix casting sharp shadows across his face. At 19, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had been saving the world since childhood, broad-shouldered in his black t-shirt emblazoned with the number 10, brown hair tousled by the night breeze. The taller alien, a Christ, a line being with prismatic limbs that refracted moonlight into deadly laser beams, tilted its angular head. The dimensional boundary grows thin here, Tennyson. Your primitive planet sits at a nexus point. We merely expedite the inevitable. Its companion, a hovering creature composed of swirling violet energy constrained within a technological exoskeleton, pulsed with malevolent light. The chronovortigens require this convergence. Your interference is inconsequential. Ben's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. The plumbers had detected unusual energy spikes in this area for weeks. But interdimensional beings were outside their usual threat categories. The crystalline alien, designation unknown, had already demonstrated the ability to tear holes in local space-time, while its energy-based companion manipulated those rifts. You know, Ben replied, sliding his fingers across the Ultimatrix's holographic interface with practiced precision, after dealing with egregor, Vilgax, and literal universe-ending catastrophes, I find that nothing is really inconsequential anymore. The familiar green light engulfed him as alien DNA rewrote his molecular structure. The transformation complete, a massive bipedal tiger with orange fur, black stripes, and no eyes stood where Ben had been moments before. Wrath, the alien roared, muscles rippling beneath dense fur. Let me tell you something. Interdimensional crystal face. Nobody rips holes in Wrath's dimension without getting a dimensional hole ripped in them. The crystalline being fired prismatic energy beams from its hands, which Wrath dodged with surprising agility for his bulk, leaping from one warehouse wall to another before landing a devastating blow that sent crystal shards scattering across the concrete. Your transformation capabilities remain impressive, the energy being observed clinically, circling higher. But ultimately futile. The creature extended appendages of concentrated energy that began tearing at the fabric of reality itself. The air between them distorted like heat waves over asphalt, but with fractal patterns that hurt to look at directly, mathematical impossibilities given physical form. Wrath charged forward but was repelled by a force field of warped space-time. Let me tell you something, floating purple light bulb. Wrath doesn't care about your fancy physics tricks. But brute force wasn't working. Ben needed precision, not power. With a flash of green light, Wrath disappeared, replaced by a small, frog-like alien with large, bulbous green eyes. Gray matter. Diminutive alien announced in a high-pitched, intelligent voice. Now let's analyze what we're dealing with. Gray matter observed the dimensional tear with newfound clarity. The crystalline N was using its prismatic structure to refract energy from its partner, creating resonance patterns that weakened local reality. Fascinating, but also incredibly dangerous. The rifts are following non-Euclidean expansion patterns. Gray matter muttered, but if I can disrupt the harmonic oscillation between them. The tiny alien leapt with precision, landing on the crystalline being's shoulder. Before his opponent could react, gray matter had reconfigured several crystal facets, changing their refractive properties. The energy beams suddenly scattered wildly, one striking the energy being's containment suit. No, the convergence pattern is destabilizing. The energy being shrieked, its voice distorting as reality around it wavered. The crystalline alien staggered backward. We cannot maintain dimensional integrity. Abort extraction. Gray matter leapt clear as the energy being's containment suit began to fracture. That's right, retreat back to wherever you came from before. His words cut short as the Ultimatrix symbol on his back suddenly flashed red, then purple, then a color Ben had never seen it display before, a deep, iridescent blue that seemed to pulse with its own gravitational force. System error. Dimensional variance detected. Recalibration required, the Omnitrix announced in a distorted version of its usual mechanical voice. What? No, not now, Gray Matter protested, tapping frantically at the symbol. The energy being's containment suit ruptured completely, releasing a torrent of wild dimensional energy that collided with the Omnitrix's unexpected recalibration sequence. The resulting reaction created a cascading failure in the already weakened fabric of reality. Dimensional coordinates compromised. Initiating emergency translocation, the Omnitrix intoned. Wait, that's not even a function you have. Gray Matter shouted before being engulfed in a vortex of colors that human eyes were never meant to process. The crystalline alien reached toward the collapsing portal. The human has been pulled into the convergence point. The chronovortesians will. Whatever the chronovortesians would do remained unspoken as reality snapped back like an elastic band, sealing the dimensional breach and leaving nothing but scattered crystal fragments and bewildered plumber agents arriving too late at the scene. Falling through diamonds. Ional space felt like being simultaneously compressed into a singularity and stretched across infinity. Ben experienced his body as both infinitesimally small and cosmically vast, existing in every possible configuration at once. Throughout it all, the Omnitrix continued its emergency protocols, sampling the dimensional energies surrounding them, adapting its alien database to maintain compatibility with wherever, or whenever, they might emerge. Ben felt knowledge pouring into his consciousness, glimpses of worlds with different physical constants, realms where magic rather than science formed the fundamental framework of reality. Dimensions populated by beings of pure concept rather than matter or energy. Then, abruptly, the sensation of falling stopped. Impact. Concrete shattering beneath him, pain flaring across nerve endings suddenly reunited with a singular physical form. Ben gasped, lungs desperately drawing in air that tasted wrong. Not toxic, just subtly different. Like drinking water from an unfamiliar source. Omnitrix. Status report. He managed between ragged breaths, pushing himself to hands and knees. The device on his wrist glowed that same strange iridescent blue. Emergency dimensional translocation complete. Host biological systems stable. Database reconstruction in progress. Warning. Native dimensional energy patterns incompatible with standard transformation protocols. Adaptation required. Ben finally raised his head, taking in his surroundings. He appeared to have landed in some kind of park or urban green space. Ornate street lamps cast pools of light along winding paths. The architecture visible beyond the treeline was familiar yet distinct, modern but with stylistic elements he didn't recognize from any human culture he knew. Great, he muttered, standing unsteadily. Another dimension. Azimuth is going to kill me if I've broken the multiverse again. The Omnitrix flickered, detecting significant energy signatures approaching. Caution advised. Local dimensional energy contains unknown mystical elements not compatible with standard scientific classification. Mystical elements. What does that even? A blinding CR. Imson flash interrupted him as a large magical circle materialized 20 feet away, inscribed with intricate symbols that resembled no language Ben recognized. From within it stepped 5 figures, ch radiating power that made the hair on his arms stand on end. At their center stood a young woman with long crimson hair cascading down her back like liquid fire. Her aquamarine eyes assessed Ben with calculated precision. She wore what appeared to be a school uniform, yet carried herself with aristocratic authority. To her right stood a petite white-haired girl with a neutral expression, and beside her, a young man with short blonde hair carrying a sword that hadn't been there a moment before. On the crimson-haired woman's left was a bespectacled young woman with long black hair and a severe expression. And behind them all loomed a tall young woman with flowing black hair tied in a ponytail, wearing what appeared to be traditional shrine maiden attire. "Era, the ponytailed woman," N said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It seems our unexpected visitor made quite the entrance." The crimson-haired woman stepped forward, power radiating from her in palpable waves. "I am Rias Grayfia, heir to the House of Grayfia. You have entered devil territory without permission, bringing an energy signature unlike anything we've encountered. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Devil territory. Ben's mind raced through possible explanations. Alien civilizations with religious-themed cultures. Parallel Earth with supernatural elements. Actual metaphysical beings. The multiverse contained infinite possibilities. I'm Ben Tennyson, he replied, straightening to his full height. And believe me, I didn't exactly plan this visit. I was fighting interdimensional beings in my world when something went wrong with my Omnitrix. He raised his wrist, showing the still recalibrating device. I think I've been pulled into your dimension by accident. The bespectacled woman adjusted her glasses. Skepticism evident. Interdimensional travel requires enormous power and precise calculations. Yet you claim it happened by accident. Story of my life, Ben replied with a wry smile. Listen, I'm not looking for trouble. I just need to figure out how to get back to my dimension. Rias studied him with intensifying curiosity. Your energy signature, it's unlike anything in our records. Not human, devil, angel, fallen, yokai, or any known supernatural being. Yet you appear human. That's complicated, Ben admitted. I am human, but the Omnitrix contains the DNA of thousands of alien species that I can transform into. The blonde swordsman raised an eyebrow. Transform. Like a sacred gear. I don't know what that is, Ben replied honestly. But perhaps a demonstration would help. If you'll allow it. He looked to Rias, recognizing her authority. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. Proceed, but be warned. Any hostile action will be met with immediate response. Ben nodded, turning the Omnitrix dial carefully. The holographic interface appeared, but instead of his usual transformation roster, unfamiliar symbols swirled in chaotic patterns. Omnitrix still recalibrating. Limited transformation access available, the device announced. Warning. Local dimensional energy affecting transformation matrix. Just give me something that works, Ben muttered. Selecting one of the few stable icons. Green light engulfed him, but with unusual blue electrical discharges arcing through the transformation energy. When it faded, standing in Ben's place was a humanoid being composed of living green crystal, the Omnitrix symbol prominent on his chest. Diamond Head, he announced, then paused, noticing subtle differences in his form. Crystals composing his body contained swirling patterns of blue energy never present before, and he felt a strange resonance with his surroundings he couldn't explain. The reaction from the group was immediate. The white-haired girl dropped into a fighting stance, frost forming around her hands. The swordsman manifested additional blades that hovered in the air around him. The bespectacled woman generated crackling electricity between her fingers. Only Rias remained outwardly calm, though her power visibly intensified. Fascinating, she said. Your energy signature has completely changed, yet retains its fundamental uniqueness. Quote, Diamond Head held up crystalline hands in a non-threatening gesture. Still just me in here. This form is called Diamond Head, a Petrosapian from the planet Petropia. Or at least, that's what he was originally. Something about your dimension is affecting my transformations. The ponytailed woman tilted her head. It seems similar to a sacred gear balance breaker, yet fundamentally different. President, could this be related to the anomaly we detected? Possibly, Akano, Rias replied, never taking her eyes off Diamond Head. The energy spike we initially investigated has the same otherworldly quality. Diamond Head looked at his hands, noticing how the crystal refracted light differently than usual. The Omnitrix must be adapting to your dimension's physical laws. My aliens have never looked quite like this before. A flash of green light returned Ben to human form. The Omnitrix continued to pulse with that strange iridescent blue, occasionally projecting fractured holographic symbols before absorbing them back into itself. Recalibration progress. 32%, it announced. Warning. Unknown draconic energy detected in local dimensional framework. Integration with transformation matrix in progress. Draconic energy. Ben repeated, confused. This got an immediate reaction from all 5 individuals. The bespectacled woman gasped audibly. The swordsman's eyes widened in shock. Impossible, he whispered. Rias stepped forward, her expression intense. Your device detected dragon energy. Are you certain? The Omnitrix docent. She usually make mistakes about energy classifications, Ben replied cautiously. Though in a new dimension, anything's possible. What's significant about dragons here? Rias exchanged meaningful glances with her companions before addressing Ben again. This changes matters considerably. I believe we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. Would you accompany us to our headquarters? I give you my word as a Grimoire that no harm will come to you there. Ben weighed his options. He was in an unknown dimension with limited transformation capabilities and no allies. These people clearly had information he needed, and despite their obvious power, they'd made no aggressive moves against him. Lead the way, he agreed. But I should warn you, the Omnitrix is still adapting to your dimension. I'm not sure what will happen when it finishes recalibrating. Rias smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her already beautiful face into something that momentarily took Ben's breath away. That makes two of us. Ben Tennyson from another dimension. I suspect things are about to become very interesting. The headquarters turned out to be an old schoolhouse on what appeared to be an academy campus. The Victorian architecture stood in contrast to the more modern buildings surrounding it, giving it a timeless quality that somehow seemed appropriate for beings who called themselves devils. Inside, the building had been renovated into a luxurious meeting space centered around antique furniture and a large ornate desk where Rias now sat. Her companions had introd themselves during the walk: Kaneko the white-haired girl, Hiba the swordsman, Akano the ponytailed woman, and Asia, a blonde girl who had joined them at the building entrance and who wore her kind ness as visibly as the others wore their power. So, devils, Ben said, sitting across from Rias. Not a metaphor, I take it. No more than your aliens are, Rias replied with a slight smile. I suspect our understanding of devils differs from yours. In this world, devils are one of several supernatural factions, alongside angels, fallen angels, and various mythological pantheons. And humans, where do they fit in? They exist largely unaware of our presence. We maintain this academy as part of our territory, with most students being ordinary humans who see only what we wish them to see. Ben nodded slowly, processing this. In my dimension, we have aliens, time travelers, interdimensional beings, but they're all still bound by scientific principles, even if it's science humans haven't mastered yet. You're talking about actual supernatural forces. The distinction between advanced science and magic often blurs at the highest levels, the bespectacled woman, Akano, commented. Perhaps your aliens would be classified differently here. The Omnitrix suddenly projected a holographic display that filled the center of the room, a complex three-dimensional model of energy. Y patterns swirling around a central axis. Dimensional analysis complete, it announced. Local reality framework integrated. Warning. Significant deviation from baseline universal constants detected. Magic coefficient at 78.3% above standard parameters. Dragon energy saturation at unusual levels. The hologram zoomed in on pulsing nodes of power throughout the model, each radiating distinct energy signatures. This is a map of our world's power structure, Rias said with evident surprise. Your device mapped our entire supernatural ecosystem in minutes. The Omnitrix was created by Azimuth, the smartest being in 5 galaxies, at least in my dimension, Ben explained. It's designed to adapt to any environment and catalog all forms of life and energy. Hiba studied the hologram with narrowed eyes. These concentrations here, those are the territories of the various devil houses. And these points must be heaven's domain. The detail is incredible. Recalibration at 57%, the Omnitrix continued. Assimilating local transformation potential. Notice. Dragon energy compatible with transformation matrix. Integration will enhance transformation capabilities beyond standard parameters. Ben glanced at his wrist with concern. That doesn't sound like standard operating procedure. Your device keeps mentioning dragon energy, Rias noted. In our world, dragons are among the most powerful beings to ever exist. The 2 heavenly dragons, Didrag and Albion, possessed power that rivaled gods before they were sealed away. And my Omnitrix is somehow interacting with this energy. It appears so, Rias confirmed, though how or why remains unclear. Dragon energy typically requires a suitable vessel, usually a sacred gear with a dragon soul sealed within it. The Omnitrix's hologram shifted, displaying a double helix of energy that resembled DNA but with impossible geometries interwoven throughout its structure. Adaptive transformation sequencing initiated. New transformation templates being generated based on local dimensional parameters. Ben watched with growing unease as the holographic DNA strands incorporated swirling patterns of energy that matched what Rias had called dragon energy. "I don't think it's supposed to do that," he muttered. "Your device is evolving," Akano observed. "Fascinating. It's as though it's creating new life forms by combining your alien DNA with our world's supernatural energy." Before Ben could respond, a new presence made itself known. The air a few feet away shimmered with silver light as another magical circle appeared. Smaller and more intricate than the one that had transported them to the old schoolhouse. From within it stepped a woman of such striking beauty and presence that the room itself seemed to recalibrate around her. Tall and elegant, with silver hair falling to her waist and sharp silver eyes that missed nothing, she wore a blue and white French-made outfit that somehow projected authority rather than subservience. Even Rias straightened in her seat. "Grayfia, I didn't expect you." The energy signature was detected by Lord Searsex himself, the woman replied, her voice cool and precise. "When I reported your investigation, he requested immediate information." Her gaze shifted to Ben, assessing him with clinical efficiency. "This is the source. This is Ben Tennyson," Rias corrected gently. "A visitor from another dimension with a device called the Omnitrix that allows him to transform into various beings. The device is currently adapting to our dimension's energy, including dragon energy." Grayfia's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened with interest. "Another dimension? Not the dimensional gap." "No," Ben interjected. "A parallel Earth where the our natural doesn't exist. At least not as you know it. We have aliens instead." Grayfia approached the still projecting hologram, studying it with evident expertise. "This is an extraordinarily accurate model of our world's power structure. Creating this would require sensing capabilities beyond what any known sacred gear possesses. The Ultimatrix isn't from this dimension," Ben explained. "It was created to catalog and access the DNA of every sentient species in my universe. And now it appears to be adapting that function to our reality," Grayfia observed. "Including attempting to catalog dragon energy, which is not typically compatible with technological systems." As if responding to her assessment, the Ultimatrix's hologram shifted again, displaying a new transformation silhouette that Ben had never seen before, a humanoid form with draconic elements, surrounded by energy patterns similar to those the device had identified throughout this dimension. "New transformation template available," the Ultimatrix announced. Designation: pending. Dragon energy integration at 63% and rising. A wave of dizziness swept over Ben as he felt the Ultimatrix drawing on his own life energy to stabilize the integration process. He gripped the armrests of his chair, knuckles whitening. "Ben," Rias asked, concern evident in her voice. "I'm fine," he managed. "The Ultimatrix sometimes takes a toll during major recalibrations. This is just more intense than usual." Grayfia moved closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the device. "The integration is two-way," she observed. "Your device isn't just cataloging dragon energy, it's incorporating it into its fundamental matrix. And by extension, into you." "What does that mean?" Ben asked, fighting another wave of dizziness. "It means," Rias said slowly, "that you may be becoming something new. Neither fully human nor devil nor dragon, but something our world has never seen before." The Ultimatrix's hologram suddenly collapsed, the device emitting a pulse of energy that momentarily disrupted the room's lighting. When it stabilized, the strange iridescent blue glow had settled into a steady pulse, like a heartbeat. "Recalibration complete," it announced. "Ultimate function restored and enhanced. Dragon energy integration successful. New transformation matrix established." Ben stared at the device. "Ultimate function? That's not supposed to be accessible anymore. Azimuth locked that feature." "What is this ultimate function?" Grayfia inquired. "It allows my transformations to evolve along accelerated timelines. Millions of years of simulated combat evolution compressed into moments. Azimuth considered it too dangerous and removed it during the last recalibration." "Your dimension's rules no longer fully apply," Rias pointed out. "The dragon energy may have restored capabilities your creator intentionally limited." Ben tentatively touched the Ultimatrix's interface. The holographic display appeared instantly, showing his transformed roster, but dramatically altered. His familiar aliens remained, but each now showed an ultimate variant. Additionally, several new silhouettes occupied spaces in the selection wheel, transformations he had never seen before. One in particular pulsed with that same iridescent blue energy, labeled simply, Dimensional Dragon. I think, Ben said slowly, I'm going to need to understand a lot more about this world and its dragons before I try that one. Grayfia exchanged a look with Rias. Lord Searsex will want to meet him. I suspected as much, Rias replied. But perhaps we should give our guest time to adjust first. This is all rather sudden for someone from a dimension without supernatural beings. Ben appreciated her consideration but shook his head. I've learned that when dealing with new dimensions, it's better to understand the power structures quickly. If this Lord Searsex is someone important, I should probably meet him sooner rather than later. Lord Searsex is one of the 4 Satans who rule the underworld, Grayfia explained. He is also Rias's older brother. And your husband, Rias added with a small smile directed at Grayfia, who maintained her professional demeanor despite a momentary softening around her eyes. Okay, Ben said, absorbing this new information. Devil nobility, rulers called Satans, an underworld, definitely not in Kansas anymore. Before that meeting occurs, Grayfia continued, we should establish your intentions in our world. Are you seeking to return to your dimension immediately, or will you remain here for a period of time? Ben considered the question carefully. The Omnitrix has never transported me between dimensions before. That was caused by the interdimensional beings I was fighting. I'm not sure it can reverse the process without understanding exactly how I got here in the first place. Then you may be here indefinitely, Rias concluded. Possibly, Ben acknowledged. Though in my experience, when one door between dimensions opens, others tend to follow. The multiverse has a way of balancing itself eventually. Until then, Rias said, leaning forward with renewed interest. Perhaps you could tell us more about these transformations of yours, particularly how they might function in our world with this new dragon energy integration. Ben smiled despite his predicament. Rias's intellectual curiosity reminded him of Gwen's approach to new phenomena, analytical but genuinely fascinated. I'm still figuring that out myself, he admitted. But I suppose a more controlled demonstration couldn't hurt. Quote, he stood, moving to an open area of the room, and activated the Omnitrix once more. This time, he selected one of his most reliable transformations, Swampfire. The familiar green light enveloped him, but now interwoven with threads of blue energy. When the transformation completed, the being that stood before them resembled Swampfire in basic structure. A humanoid plant creature capable of generating fire and controlling plant life. However, the flames that danced across his palms now burned with blue-green intensity, and the plant matter composing his body had a more robust, almost armored quality. Swampfire, the transformed Ben announced. But different. I can feel the change at a cellular level. The methane compounds I produce for my fur have been enriched with something else, something that burns hotter and with more directed force. To demonstrate, he generated a small flame above his palm. Instead of the usual orange-red fire, is burned blue-green with such intensity that the temperature in the room noticeably increased despite the flame's small size. The dragon energy appears to be enhancing your transformation's natural capabilities, Akano observed. Fascinating. It's more than enhancement, Swampfire replied, his voice deeper and more resonant than usual. It's like evolution, adaptation to this dimension's higher energy state. He concentrated, attempting to access the ultimate function that the Omnitrix had indicated was restored. The symbol on his chest expanded, projecting 4 spikes as energy coursed through his transformed body. Ultimate Swampfire, he called out as the transformation completed. The being that now stood before them barely resembled the original Swampfire. His body had RDENED into wood-like armor with blue flame patterns etched throughout. The head had developed a crown-like structure of hardened plant matter, and the hands had transformed into claw-like appendages capable of directing concentrated flame. This is beyond the ultimate form I remember, he said, examining his transformed state. The dragon energy hasn't just restored the function, it's elevated it. Rias approached cautiously, her scientific curiosity evident. The power output has increased exponentially, and the energy signature has elements of both your original alien form and our world's dragon energy. Ultimate Swampfire generated a small sphere of blue-white flame that burned with such intensity it seemed to bend light around itself. The control is different too, more precise. In my world, Ultimate Swampfire had raw power but less finesse. Here, I can feel every molecule of the flame, direct its properties with thought alone. Grayfia observed with professional assessment. If all your transformations have been similarly enhanced, you represent a significant variable in our world's power balance. The various factions will take notice, whether you wish them to or not. Ultimate Swampfire nodded, then reverted first to regular Swampfire, then back to human form with twin flashes of green-blue light. Ben steadied himself against a nearby table, the double transformation having taken more energy than usual. I'm starting to get that impression, he said. Which means I need to understand your world's politics quickly. In my experience, being caught between powerful factions without knowing the players is a recipe for disaster. Rias returned to her desk, a decision apparently made. Then we shall be your guides. The House of Grimoire can offer protection and knowledge while you adjust to our dimension. And in return, Ben asked, having learned that such offers usually came with expectations. Rias smiled appreciatively at his directness. Information exchange, your dimension, your experiences, your technology, they represent knowledge beyond anything our scholars have accessed. Additionally, having an ally of your capabilities would benefit our house. In the complex political landscape we navigate, a fair arrangement, Ben acknowledged. Though I should be clear, I don't take sides in conflicts without understanding their moral dimensions. Where I come from, I'm considered a hero. That means something to me. A hero, Rias repeated thoughtfully. Our world defines such things differently than yours, I suspect. Devils aren't evil by nature as your myths might suggest. But neither do we adhere to human notions of morality. We value contracts, power, and loyalty to our houses. Then this will be educational for both of us, Ben replied with a smile. Grayfia straightened, apparently having reached a conclusion. I will inform Lord Searsex of these developments and arrange accommodations suitable for our interdimensional guest. Until then, I suggest keeping knowledge of your presence limited to those already aware. Ben nodded agreement. One last question. This dragon energy the Omnitrix has integrated. What exactly does it mean for me personally? Am I in any danger from the integration? The room fell silent for a moment as the devils exchanged significant looks. Dragon energy is fundamental to our world's power structure, Rias finally explained. Those who wield it often become central to world-changing events. The last humans to gain dragon powers became focal points in the great war between devils, angels, and fallen angels. So that's a yes on the becoming involved in major conflicts front, Ben said dryly. It means, Grayfia clarified, that remaining neutral may not be an option, regardless of your personal preferences. Power attracts attention in our world, particularly unique power such as yours. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, now steadily glowing with that iridescent blue light interspersed with its native green. Well, he said with a wry smile that masked his concern, it wouldn't be the first time this watch made me a target. At least the company seems better this time around. Rias laughed, a musical sound that momentarily lightened the room's serious atmosphere. I believe we're going to get along well, Ben Tennyson from another dimension. Welcome, however accidentally, to our world. As the Occult Research Club members began discussing logistics, Ben gazed out the window at the unfamiliar stars of this new dimension. The Omnitrix had adapted as it always did. But this time the changes went deeper than ever before. Whatever this dragon energy was, it had fundamentally altered both the device and, by extension, himself. The question remained, had he why been pulled randomly into this dimension by accident, or was there purpose behind his arrival? In Ben's experience, the multiverse rarely operated on pure coincidence. Somewhere in this new reality lay answers, and likely new dangers to face. For now, though, he had allies. It was a start. Outside the old schoolhouse, unseen by those within, three figures observed from different vantage points. In the shadows between buildings, a woman with black hair and cat-like eyes watched with predatory interest. High above, Balanced impossibly on a telephone pole, another figure in white armor tracked the energy signatures with calculating precision. And from within the nearby forest, ancient eyes that had witnessed centuries of supernatural events narrowed thoughtfully at this unexpected disruption to the established order. Ben Tennyson had arrived in a world of devils, angels, and dragons, and nothing would be quite the same again. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Strange Alignments. Morning Lee. GHT filtered through unfamiliar curtains, casting geometric patterns across Ben's sleeping form. For one peaceful moment between consciousness and dreams, everything felt normal. Then reality reasserted itself. The subtle differences in air composition, the faint background hum of energies his body was still learning to process, the weight of the Ultimatrix on his wrist pulsing with its new iridescent blue-green light. Another dimension. Devils, angels, and dragons. Ben sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair as he surveyed his temporary accommodations. The apartment was modest but comfortable, a living area with kitchenette, separate bedroom, and bathroom. Rias had arranged it through her family's extensive human world holdings, explaining that it would serve until more permanent arrangements could be made. Day 2 of being cosmically displaced, he muttered, examining the Ultimatrix. The device had stabilized overnight, its interface now displaying a harmonious blend of its original green energy and the new dragon energy it had absorbed. When Ben activated the holographic display, his transformation roster appeared with startling new organization, his original aliens. Now categorized by elemental affinities, combat specializations, and energy types that aligned with this dimension's magical classification system. "You've been busy," Ben told the device, scrolling through the transformed list. A knock at the door interrupted his examination. Ben pulled on a t-shirt, provided by Kiba, who was closest to his size, and opened the door to find Asia Argento, the gentle blonde healer from Rias's group, holding a small basket. "Good morning, Ben-san," she greeted with a formal bow. "Bushu asked me to bring you breakfast and some additional clothes." Her Japanese was flawless, the translation function of the Ultimatrix rendering it perfectly comprehensible to Ben. "Thanks, Asia, and just Ben is fine," he replied, accepting the basket which contained fresh bread, fruit, and what appeared to be homemade preserves. "Did you make this yourself?" A blush colored her cheeks. "Hi, I thought you might appreciate something home-cooked in a strange place." Ben smiled genuinely. "That's incredibly thoughtful. Would you like to come in? I was just trying to make sense of the Ultimatrix's new configuration." Asia entered with hesitant curiosity. Unlike the others in Rias's group, she projected no aura of supernatural power, at least not the aggressive kind. There was something gentle but profound about her energy signature that Ben couldn't quite place. "You were human once, weren't you?" Ben asked suddenly, the realization striking him. Asia's eyes widened in surprise. "Yes, I was reincarnated as a devil after I died." She absently touched her chest, as if remembering the moment. "How did you know?" Ben gestured to the Ultimatrix. "It's cataloging everyone I meet, creating a comprehensive database of this dimension's beings. Your RGY signature has human patterns underlying the devil energy, like geological strata, one layer built upon another." "That's amazing," Asia said, her momentary discomfort forgotten in fascination. "And your device tell things about all of us?" "More every hour," Ben confirmed. "For instance, I now know your specialization is healing, an extremely rare ability among devils from what the Ultimatrix has gathered. It's analyzing the metaphysical mechanics behind it, trying to determine if there's an equivalent function I could access through transformation." Asia sat down on one of the kitchen stools, clearly intrigued. "Could you really transform into a healer like me?" Ben activated the holographic display, showing her the transformation roster. "Possibly. The Ultimatrix originally worked by sampling DNA, the genetic code of living beings. But here, it's adapting to incorporate what you call magic into its framework. It's as if it's learning to translate between science and magic, the universal constants that underlie both." "That sounds like something Bushu would love to discuss," Asia commented. "She's always been fascinated by the theoretical foundations of magic." "Bushu, you mean Rias?" Asia nodded. "It means, club president. It's how we address her in the occult research club." Right, your cover for Devil Operations, Ben recalled. Speaking of which, what's the plan for today? Grayfia mentioned something about arrangements being made. Hi. Bushu asked me to let you know that Grayfia-sama will arrive at noon to escort you to meet Sirzex-sama in the underworld. Then this evening, there will be a formal introduction at the Orc to properly welcome you. Ben glanced at the clock. 9:17 a.m. That gives me some time to get better acquainted with these new transformations. The Omnitrix has been integrating information all night. Asia's expression turned curious. May I? Would it be possible to see another transformation? The one yesterday was incredible, but I was mostly focused on healing Kaneko after the fight that led to your detection. Ben smiled at her enthusiastic interest, so different from the wary assessment of the others. Sure, let's try something less intimidating than Ultimate Swampfire. He scrolled through the options, selecting one of his original transformations to see how it had been affected by the dimensional adaptation. In a flash of green-blue light, Ben's form shifted and reconfigured. Where he had stood now hovered a jellyfish-like being with transparent blue skin through which electrical pulses could be seen traveling along neural pathways. 6 tentacle-like appendages extended beneath a bell-shaped head containing a singular green eye. Amphibian, the transformed Ben announced, his voice now carrying a subtle electrical resonance. One of my aliens with electrokinetic abilities. Asia gasped in delight, clapping her hands together. Sugoi, you're like lightning in physical form. Amphibian drifted closer, careful to modulate the electrical field around his body to prevent accidental shocks. That's fairly accurate. I can generate and control electricity, absorb it from external sources, and even read the electrical impulses of other beings' nervous systems, a form of limited telepathy. He generated a small display of electrical current between 2 tentacles, forming it into intricate patterns that danced and swirled in the air. But as he maintained the display, something unexpected happened. The electricity began taking on physical properties it shouldn't possess, forming eerily solid geometric structures before dissolving back into pure energy. That's new, Amphibian observed with surprise. The dragon energy appears to be allowing me to give physical structure to electrical energy, almost like matter generation. Asia watched in wonder as the electricity between his tentacles formed a perfect miniature replica of the Occult Research Club building, complete with tiny windows and architectural details, all rendered in glowing blue-white electrical energy. It's beautiful, she breathed. Like lightning sculpture, Amphibian allowed the creation to dissipate, returning to human form with another flash of light. The transformations are evolving in ways I've never seen before, Ben explained, examining the Omnitrix thoughtfully. It's as if this Dimensio's magical framework is teaching the device new applications of powers I already had. Asia tilted her head. Maybe it's not just your device learning, but you as well. Bushu says that all living things in our world contain magical potential, even humans, though most never access it. That's. Ben paused, considering the implication. Actually, that makes sense. The Omnitrix doesn't just transform me physically. It reconfigures my consciousness to access the innate knowledge of whatever species I become. If I'm adapting to this dimension at a fundamental level, the device would reflect that. Their conversation was interrupted by another knock, sharper and more authoritative than Asia's had been. Ben opened the door to find Grayfia standing there, immaculate in her maid uniform, Elver eyes assessing him with clinical precision. Ben Tennyson, she greeted formally. I see you've settled in. There has been a change of plans. Lord Sirzex requests your presence immediately. Seer, Troin factions have become aware of your arrival sooner than anticipated. Ben glanced at Asia, who looked equally surprised. I thought that meeting wasn't until noon. Circumstances have evolved, Grayfia replied, her tone revealing nothing. The rating game between Lady Rias and Lord Riser has been postponed specifically to address your arrival. This is unprecedented. Rating game. Lord Riser, Ben questioned. There will be time for explanations later, Grayfia said. For now, I must insist we depart immediately. Asia, please inform Lady Rias of the change in schedule. Asia bowed quickly. Hi, Grayfia-sama. She turned to Ben with an encouraging smile. Don't worry, Ben. Sirzex-sama is very kind, despite his position. After Asia departed, Grayfia produced a small silver object that resembled an ornate chess piece. This will transport us directly to the underworld. I must caution you, the dimensional transition may interact unpredictably with your device. Ben nodded, mentally preparing himself. The Ultimatrix has been adapting continuously. It should handle the transition, though I can't guarantee what effect it might have on its ongoing reconfiguration. Grayfia studied him with new interest. You speak of your device as though it were a separate entity with its own adaptation processes. In some ways, it is, Ben acknowledged. The Ultimatrix contains a semi-autonomous intelligence system designed to catalog and adapt to new environments and life forms. It's not fully sentient, but it's far beyond ordinary technology. Fascinating, Grayfia murmured. Our world has living artifacts with similar properties, sacred gears imbued with souls of legendary beings. Yet your device seems to function on principles that blend technology and something akin to our magic. She extended the silver chess piece, a rook, Ben now noticed, between them. Place your hand on this. The transportation circle will form around us. Ben complied, resting his fingertips on the cool metal. Immediately, an intricate silver magical circle expanded outward from the piece, surrounding them in concentric rings of glowing sigils and arcane symbols. The Ultimatrix responded instantly, its surface glowing brighter as it analyzed the magical construct. Dimensional transportation energy detected, it announced in its mechanical voice. Analyzing spatial folding properties, comparing to known teleportation methodologies. Grayfia's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine surprise Ben had seen her express. Your device can analyze magic circles. Apparently, Ben replied as the room around them began to fade from view. It's trying to understand how magic works in terms it can process. The transportation circle flared with blinding silver light, and Ben fell. The distinctive sensation of reality shifting around him, not unlike teleportation in his home dimension, yet fundamentally different. Where teleportation felt instantaneous, this was more like moving sideways through layers of reality. Briefly touching planes of existence that human senses weren't equipped to process. When the light faded and the disorientation passed, they stood in a vast hall that defied conventional architectural understanding. Massive pillars of what appeared to be black marble veined with crimson supported a ceiling so high it seemed to merge with an artificial sky. The floor beneath them was polished stone that reflected their images with perfect clarity, yet seemed to contain swirling depths when viewed from certain angles. Welcome to the administrative palace of the underworld, Grayfia stated, resuming her formal demeanor. Lord Searsex awaits us in the crimson receiving chamber. Ben whistled softly, taking in the impossible scale of the structure. They've been to alien worlds with less impressive architecture. Your people don't do things halfway, do they? The faintest trace of pride crossed Grayfia's face. Devil civilization predates human history. We have had eons to perfect our aesthetic sensibilities. As they walked through corridors populated by devils of various ranks, distinguished by the complexity of their attire and the deference shown to them by others, Ben noticed the Ultimatrix continuously pulsing, absorbing information about this new environment at an unprecedented rate. Your device seems particularly active here, Grayfia observed. The underworld contains energy patterns it's never encountered before, Ben explained. It's like taking a supercomputer from the 1980s and connecting it to modern quantum internet. There's a lot to process and integrate. They arrived at an ornate doorway standing at least 20 feet tall, carved from what appeared to be a single piece of ruby-like crystal. Two guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention, their power levels registering as significant even to Ben's still developing sensitivity to this world's energy scale. Lady Grayfia and the interdimensional visitor, Ben Tennyson. To see Lord Searsex by his request, Grayfia announced. The guards bowed deeply. To Grayfia, Ben noticed, more than to him, and touched the crystal doors in perfect synchronization. The massive structure swung inward without a sound, revealing a circular chamber bathed in crimson light. At its center sat a man who appeared to be in his late 20s, with crimson hair similar to Rias's, and eyes that contained power Ben could feel even from the doorway. Despite the formal setting, he wore a surprisingly casual outfit, what Ben's newly updated cultural database identified as traditional Japanese casual wear. A yukata in deep blue with silver detailing. More surprising were the others present in the room, not just the expected advisors and guards, but Rias herself, along with a man Ben didn't recognize who radiated barely contained hostility. The stranger had handsome features, blonde hair, and an aristocratic bearing that somehow managed to be simultaneously refined and arrogant. His blue eyes tracked Ben with predatory assessment. "Ah, our interdimensional visitor arrives," Sears said, his voice carrying both warmth and absolute authority. "Welcome, Ben Tennyson. I apologize for the sudden summons. But certain developments required your immediate presence." Ben approached and, following Grayfia's subtle guidance, offered a formal bow appropriate to the situation. "Thank you for your hospitality, Lord Sears. I understand my arrival has caused some complications." "Complications?" the blonde man interjected with barely contained disdain. "An unknown entity with unclassifiable power appears in devil territory, absorbs dragon energy without a sacred gear, and you call it complications. This is an unprecedented disruption to the established order. Lord Riser," Sears addressed him with patience that seemed practiced, "as we've discussed, Mr. Tennyson's arrival appears to be accidental rather than deliberate provocation." Riser's eyes narrowed. As he assessed Ben with growing irritation. "Accident or not, his presence changes everything. The rating game to resolve my engagement to Rias cannot proceed with such an unknown variable potentially altering the balance of power." "Engagement?" Ben glanced at Rias, whose expression revealed carefully controlled frustration directed entirely at Riser. "Perhaps," Sears suggested with diplomatic precision, "we should allow our guest to understand the situation before continuing this discussion." "Of course," Riser replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "By all means, let us educate the dimensional interloper about the affairs of his betters." Ben felt a flash of annoyance but kept his expression neutral. He'd dealt with plenty of arrogant adversaries before, from Vilgax to T. He hybrid, and had learned when to push back and when to gather information first. Sears turned to Ben with a warm smile that reminded him of Rias. "Mr. Tennyson, may I call you Ben? The situation is somewhat delicate. My sister Rias is currently engaged to Lord Riser Phoenix through an arrangement between our houses. This engagement was to be either confirmed or dissolved through a rating gam. A formal competitive battle between their respective peerages. Which I would obviously win," Riser interjected confidently. Rias's eyes flashed with determination. "That remains to be seen. Your arrival," Sears continued smoothly, "introduced an unexpected variable. The energy signature you and your device emit has characteristics never before recorded in our world. More concerning to some parties is the apparent absorption and integration of dragon energy into your transformation matrix. I didn't exactly plan to absorb anything," Ben pointed out reasonably. "The Ultimatrix adapted automatically to this dimension's energy patterns. That's what it's designed to do, analyze and integrate with new environments." "Convenient," Riser commented dryly. The Ultimatrix suddenly projected its holographic interface without Ben activating it, a rare occurrence that indicated the device had detected something significant. A three-dimensional model of Riser appeared, rotating slowly as data streamed alongside it. "Species analysis complete," the Ultimatrix announced. "Subject: Phoenix class Devil. Regenerative capabilities derived from immortal Firebird mythology. Pyrokinetic Abel, itties with unique signature similar to transformed state, Heatblast. Potential transformation template available." The room fell silent as everyone stared at the projection. Riser's expression transformed from disdain to outrage. "It's analyzing me. How dare you?" Fire erupted around his clenched fists. "This device presumes to reduce the noble Phoenix bloodline to a transformation template." Ben quickly deactivated the holographic display. "Sorry about that. The Ultimatrix automatically analyzes new life forms it encounters. It's not an insult. Actually, it's recognizing the unique properties of your biology as something worth cataloging." "Fascinating," Sears commented, genuine interest overriding the diplomatic tension. "Your device can analyze devil bloodlines and potentially replicate their abilities through transformation." "In theory," Ben acknowledged carefully, aware of the political implications. "Though without proper understanding of how devil biology and powers work, any transformation would likely be an imperfect approximation. The Ultimatrix is still learning the fundamental principles of this dimension's lifeforms." Grayfia, who had taken a position slightly behind Sears, spoke up. This capability presents both opportunity and concern. If the device can analyze and potentially replicate sacred gears, dragon abilities, or bloodline powers, and it represents a significant shift in our world's power dynamics, Searsx finished her thought. Which brings us to our immediate concern. He turned to Ben with renewed seriousness. Several Ions have already detected your presence and have made inquiries, some diplomatic, others less so. The angels have requested information. The fallen have mobilized observation units. Even Yasaka of the Yokai has sent a formal message asking about the dimensional anomaly in Devil territory. I've been here less than a day, Ben said with mild disbelief. Your arrival created energy ripples that sensitive individuals throughout the world detected, Rias explained. And your continuing adaptation is generating power signatures that can't be concealed by conventional means. Riser stepped forward, flames still dancing around his hands. Which brings us back to the original issue. My engagement to Rias was to be settled through a rating game demonstrating my superior strength and worthiness. Now this visitor appears with unknown capabilities that could potentially be transferred to Rias's peerage, completely undermining the established protocol. I have no intention of interfering in your engagement, Ben stated firmly. I'm still trying to figure out how to return to my own dimension, or at least understand why I was brought here in the first place. Noble sentiments, Riser replied with exaggerated skepticism. But intentions matter less than capabilities. Your mere presence alters the balance. He turned to Searsx. I propose a solution that addresses multiple concerns at once. I'm listening, Searsx replied, though his expression suggested he already anticipated Riser's suggestion. A demonstration battle, Riser declared, between myself and the interdimensional visitor. This would allow us to properly assess his capabilities, demonstrate the superior strength of established devil nobility to potential watching factions, and clarify that his precinct does not change the inevitable outcome of my engagement to Rias. Ben raised an eyebrow. You want to fight me to prove a point. I want to establish the natural order, Riser corrected with a condescending smile. While your transformations may impress those unfamiliar with true power, the House of Phoenix has stood for millennia. Our regenerative abilities make us effectively immortal in combat. It would be educational for you, and instructive for any watching parties, to understand the difference between a curiosity and true devil nobility. Before Ben could respond, Rias stepped forward. Oni-sama, this is transparent manipulation. Riser hopes either to defeat Ben and thereby demonstrate his supremacy, or to force Ben to reveal capabilities that might later be used against my peerage in our rating game. Actually, Ben interjected, surprising everyone, I'm fine with a demonstration match. All eyes turned to him. You accept my challenge? Riser asked, momentarily thrown off balance by the ready agreement. Ben shrugged casually. Where I come from, I've fought everything from intergalactic warlords to interdimensional conquerors. A friendly demonstration match seems like a reasonable way to help everyone understand what I can and can't do, while respecting the political realities of this world. Searsx smiled with what appeared to be genuine amusement. Well reasoned, Ben Tennyson. Very well. A demonstration match it shall be. Not a full rating game, but a limited engagement under controlled conditions. Today, Riser insisted, before he has more time to adapt to our world's energy. This afternoon, Searsx countered, giving our guest at least some time to prepare, as basic courtesy demands. He turned to Ben. Is this acceptable to you? While Nickley you have no obligation to participate, it would indeed help establish your position in our world's complex political landscape. Ben nodded. It's acceptable, though I'd appreciate a quick primer on the rules of engagement for these kinds of matches. I'd hate to accidentally violate some cultural taboo. Grayfia will provide the necessary information, Searsx assured him. The match will take place in a controlled dimensional space this afternoon. Until then, you are welcome to tour the administrative palace as my guest. He turned to his sister. Rias, perhaps you would be kind enough to act as guide. I believe you and Ben have much to discuss regarding these developments. Rias bowed formally. Of course, Oni-sama. Riser gave Ben a final assessing look. I look forward to our match, interdimensional visitor. It's not often I have the opportunity to test myself against such a unique opponent. With that, He turned and departed in a dramatic flourish of flame that momentarily formed wings behind him. Always the showman, Sears commented with dry amusement once Riser had gone. His formal demeanor relaxed noticeably as he stood from his ornate chair and approached Ben directly. Now that the official business is temporarily concluded, allow me to welcome you more personally to the underworld, Ben Tennyson. Up close, Sears' power was even more palpable, a vast ocean of energy held under perfect control. Yet his expression was genuinely warm as he offered his hand in a surprisingly human gesture. Thank you, Ben replied, shaking the offered hand. I appreciate the welcome, especially given the circumstances of my arrival. Circumstance often yields the most interesting opportunities, Sears replied philosophically. I must attend to other matters now. But we will speak more after your match with Riser. He turned to Rias and his expression softened further. Little sister, try not to worry too much. Things have a way of working out. After Sears departed with his attendants, leaving only Rias, Grayfia, and Ben in the vast chamber, Rias let out a sigh of frustration. I apologize for Riser's behavior, she said. And for you being drawn into the situation with my engagement. No apology needed, Ben assured her. Though I'd appreciate some context. I'm gathering this engagement isn't exactly your choice. Rias's expression darkened slightly. It's a political arrangement between houses, established when I was too young to have any say in the matter. The rating game was to be my opportunity to win my freedom, though the odds were not in my favor. And now I've complicated things by showing up, Ben surmised. Actually, Rias replied with a small smile, your arrival might be the variable that changes everything. But first, we should discuss your upcoming match with Riser. Grayfia stepped forward. If I may, there are specific protocols you should understand before facing a Phoenix in combat. For the next hour, as Rias guided Ben through the administrative palace, Grayfia provided a comprehensive overview of Devil combat protocols, rating game rules, and, most importantly, what Ben needed to know about Riser Phoenix's abilities. The Phoenix clan's primary power is regeneration, she explained as they walked through a gallery filled with artistic depictions of historical rating games. Conventional attacks, no matter how powerful, will regenerate almost instantly. Additionally, Riser possesses pyrokinetic abilities that rival some of the strongest fire users among Devilkind. So physical damage is pointless. And he controls fire, Ben summarized. Sounds like I need a transformation that can either overcome regeneration or nullify his powers entirely. Rias nodded. Exactly. In traditional rating games, defeating a Phoenix usually requires either overwhelming power that exceeds their regenerative capacity, or specific countering abilities like holy water or sacred gear effects. The challenge is significant, Grayfia added with clinical precision. Even high-class devils struggle against the Phoenix regeneration. It's why their house has maintained its position of power despite relatively small numbers. Ben activated the Omnitrix's holographic interface, scrolling through his transformed roster thoughtfully. I have a few options that might work. The question is how much I should reveal in this first encounter. Rias raised an eyebrow. You're thinking strategically about information control. That's surprisingly political for someone who presents himself as primarily a hero. 7 years of saving the universe teaches you a few things about tactics, Ben replied with a wry smile. In my world, I'm well known. My alien forms, their capabilities, my usual strategies, all public knowledge. Here, no one knows what I can do, which is actually an advantage I'd rather not squander immediately. A wise approach, Grayfia acknowledged with what might have been approval. Particularly given the attention your match will receive. Representatives from multiple factions will undoubtedly observe, officially or otherwise. They had reached a balcony overlooking what appeared to be the underworld equivalent of a city, a sprawling metropolitan area with architecture that blended modern design with impossible geometries and materials that wouldn't exist on Earth. The sky above was an ever-shifting aurora of deep purples and crimsons rather than blue. It's beautiful, Ben commented, genuinely impressed. Not what I expected from a place called the underworld. Human mythology rarely captures the reality of our realm, Rias replied, joining him at the balcony railing. Devils have been civilization builders for millennia. We appreciate beauty, art, culture, not just power and conquest as humans often portray us. Grayfia consulted a silver pocket watch that materialized in her hand. We have approximately 2 hours before the demonstration match. I must attend to preparations. Lady Rias, perhaps you could continue familiarizing our guest with the relevant information. After Grayfia departed with formal efficiency, Rias turned to Ben with a more relaxed demeanor. She can be intimidatingly formal, but Grayfia is actually quite caring beneath the professional exterior. I noticed, Ben replied. She reminds me a bit of my cousin Gwen. Incredibly capable but always maintaining proper protocol. Grayfia is the strongest queen in Devil Society and could have been a Satan herself had she chosen that path, Rias explained. Instead, she serves my brother as both his queen and his wife, balancing multiple roles with flawless precision. Ben leaned against the balcony railing, processing all he had learned. So, about this engagement situation. How exactly does that work? You're being forced to marry someone you clearly don't want to marry, and your only way out is to beat him in combat. Rias sighed, her frustration evident. Devil Society values strength above almost all else. Arranged marriages between houses are common practice for maintaining bloodlines and political alliances. The rating game was a concession gran. Ted to me, if I could prove my peerage stronger than Riser's, I would earn the right to dissolve the engagement. But your peerage isn't strong enough yet. We have potential, Rias said with fierce pride. But not enough experience or development. Riser's peerage is complete with 15 members, all well-trained and battle-tested. My group is smaller, newer, with powers still developing. She turned to face Ben directly. Which is why your match with Riser is so important. If you can demonstrate vulnerabilities in his fighting style or powers, it might give us crucial information for our eventual rating game. Ben nodded thoughtfully. I'm happy to help with that. Though I'm still trying to understand my place in all this. I came here by accident, and my priority should be finding a way home. Yet I can't help feeling there's a reason the Omnitrix integrated with dragon energy so specifically. The dragons of our world are often catalysts for change, Rias observed. Their power doesn't manifest randomly, it appears where and when it will have the greatest impact on fate's course. The fact that your device assimilated dragon energy so readily suggests there may indeed be purpose behind your arrival. The Omnitrix suddenly activated, projecting a notification hologram. Dimensional analysis update. Return vector to origin dimension calculated. Warning. Required enter. GY exceeds current capacity by factor of 837.5. Dragon energy integration at 78% insufficient for dimensional transition. Ben and Rias stared at the projection. Well, Ben said after a moment, that answers one question at least. The Omnitrix can potentially get me home. I just need about 800 times more power than I currently have access to. The only beings in our world with that level of dimensional power would be. Rias paused, her eyes widening in realization. Let me guess, Ben said dryly. Dragons. Not just any dragons, Rias clarified. Great dragons, Dedrag, Albion, Ophis, Great Red. Beings of such power they transcend conventional classification. Even the gods tread carefully around them. Ben looked at the Omnitrix with new understanding. So that's why it's integrating dragon energy. It's trying to accumulate enough power for a return transit. He laughed without much humor. Which means my best chance of getting home involves becoming more connected to this world, not less. Typical Omnitrix solution. Always the most complicated path possible. Rias placed a hand on his arm, the gesture unexpectedly comforting. I know what it's like to feel trapped by circumstances beyond your control. But perhaps we can help each other. You need to understand dragon energy to return home. I need to free myself from an unwanted engagement. Our goals may be more aligned than they first appeared. Ben met her gaze. Those striking aquamarine eyes showing both determination and a vulnerability she likely revealed to few others. I'd say that's a partnership worth exploring. The moment was interrupted by a familiar voice. Bushu. Ben-san. They turned to see Kiba approaching along the balcony walkway, his usual calm expression replaced by barely contained excitement. Kiba, what are you doing in the underworld? Rias asked in surprise. Grayfia-sama brought me through to assist with Ben-san's preparation for the match, he explained, offering a respectful bow to both of them. I've been asked to help familiarize him with devil combat techniques, particularly those he might face against a Phoenix. Ben recognized the strategic value immediately. You're going to spar with me to help me prepare. Kiba smiled, a competitive gleam in his eye. If you're willing. I thought a practical demonstration might be more valuable than theoretical explanations. There's a training area nearby, Rias suggested, clearly approving of the idea. It's designed to withstand high-level combat without damage to the surrounding structure. 20 minutes later, Ben stood opposite Kiba in a vast circular chamber with walls of dark material that seemed to absorb light and sound. The floor beneath them glowed with faint runic patterns that Rias explained. Were protective enchantments to prevent serious injury. The safety systems will prevent fatal damage, she clarified from her observation position at the chamber's edge, but you'll still feel pain and temporary effects. It's designed to provide realistic combat experience without permanent consequences. Kiba drew a sword that materialized from nowhere, a European-style blade with an ornate G.U.A.R.D. that glowed with subtle blue energy. This is one of my sword-birth creations, he explained. Not my most powerful, but suitable for sparring. My sacred gear allows me to create demon swords with various properties. Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. Then I should choose something that can handle bladed combat. He scrolled through options before selecting one that the interface identified as having enhanced compatibility with this dimension's energy patterns. The transformation engulfed him in green-blue light. When it faded, Ben had become a humanoid composed of flexible green crystal with a segmented body structure. Black lines ran along his form-like circuit patterns, periodically pulsing with blue energy. His head featured a crystalline crest and green eyes that glowed with internal light. Diamond Head, he announced, the transformation's voice deeper and resonant. Then, with surprise, whoa, definitely some upgrades to this form. Kiba's eyes widened appreciatively. A crystalline body structure, interesting counter to bladed weapons. Without further preamble, Kiba launched forward with superhuman speed, his sword a blur of motion as he executed a complex series of strikes. Diamond Head responded instinctively, his crystalline arm transforming into a broad shield that caught each blow with ringing clarity. Impressive reflexes, Kiba commented, disengaging to circle his opponent. But Riser won't attack with blades, his style is more. He gestured, and his sword erupted in flames. Incendiary. The flaming sword struck Diamond Head's shoulder, leaving a scorched mark that quickly regenerated as the crystalline structure repaired itself. Moderate regenerative capability, Rias observed from the sidelines. Though nothing approaching Fennec's levels. Diamond Head stepped back, assessing his opponent with tactical precision. If I were fighting Riser, I wouldn't rely on regeneration to counter pyrokinesis. He placed his hands on the ground. ND crystalline structures erupted from the floor in a wave, forcing Kiba to leap backwards with acrobatic grace. Environmental manipulation, Kiba noted with approval. Creating distance from a fire user is sound strategy. Diamond Head raised his hands, the crystalline structure of his forearms reconfiguring into projectors. I can also fight from range. Sharp crystal shards fired in a precise pattern. Not aiming to hit Kiba directly but to control his movement options. Kiba responded by creating a second sword in his offhand, using both blades to deflect the crystal projectiles with blurring speed. Multiple attack vectors will be necessary against Riser. His awareness of three-dimensional space during combat is exceptional. The sparring match continued for several minutes, each combatant testing the other's capabilities without escalating to truly dangerous levels. Kiba demonstrated fighting techniques specific to Devil combat, explaining how Riser would likely respond to different approaches. Diamond Head adapted his fighting style accordingly, incorporating the new information into his tactical approach. You fight like someone with extensive experience, Kiba observed during a momentary pause. Your transformations provide different abilities, but your fundamental combat awareness remains consistent. 7 years of saving the world teaches you a few things, Diamond Head replied. Shifting back to human form with a flash of light. Though Devil combat has unique elements I'll need to adapt to. Kiba dismissed his swords, approaching with a respectful nod. Your adaptability is impressive. Most beings rely on consistent powers they've trained with for years. Changing forms mid-combat while maintaining tactical cohesion requires exceptional mental discipline. Thanks, Ben replied, genuinely appreciating the professional assessment. Though I'm still trying to understand how my transformations are being affected by this dimension's energy. Each form feels enhanced in unexpected ways. Rias joined them, her expression thoughtful. The dragon energy integration seems to be adding properties aligned with our world's magical principles. Your Christ. A line form demonstrated light refraction patterns similar to how devil magic manipulates energy pathways. Speaking of which, Ben said, checking the Omnitrix, I should probably test one more transformation before the match. Something specifically designed to counter Fennec's regeneration. What did you have in mind? Kiba asked with professional curiosity. Ben activated the holographic interface again. The Omnitrix has been analyzing the information about Fennec's biology. If regeneration is their primary defense, then perhaps the best counter is something that doesn't rely on causing physical damage at all. He selected a transformation, and the green-blue light enveloped him once more. This time, when it faded, a ghostly figure hovered before them, a spectral being with a single eye, black and gray coloration, and chains wrapped around its torso. Blue energy coursed along the chains in rhythmic pulses. Ghost Freak, the transformed Ben announced in a whispering, ethereal voice. CE that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Rias and Kiba both took involuntary steps backward, their expressions revealing genuine unease. That form, Rias began, her voice unusually hesitant. It resembles entities from the deepest regions of the underworld. Beings even devils approach with caution. Ghost Freak tilted his head, the single eye blinking with alien curiosity. Interesting. In my dimension, this form is an ectonorite, a species with intangibility, invisibility, and possession capabilities. They're feared, but classified as physical aliens despite their ghostly appearance. The energy signature is disturbing, Kiba observed, his hand unconsciously moving toward where his sword would materialize. Like something not fully anchored to conventional reality. That's actually quite accurate, Ghost Freak replied, demonstrating by allowing his arm to pass completely through a nearby column. Ectonorites exist partially in a different dimensional phase, allowing them to become intangible at will. Rias's scientific curiosity overcame her initial discomfort. Possession capabilities. You mean consciousness transference? Ghost Freak nodded, the motion unnaturally fluid. I can temporarily merge my consciousness with another being, accessing their knowledge and controlling their physical form. It's an ability I use sparingly for ethical reasons, but against someone like Riser. It would bypass his regeneration entirely, Rias concluded with dawning comprehension. If you controlled his body from within, his regeneration would be irrelevant. Exactly, Ghost Freak confirmed, though I suspect he'll have defenses against such tactics if they exist in your world. Mental domination resistance is standard training for high-class devils, Kiba confirmed. Though usually against demonic or angelic methods, not, whatever your form represents. The chains around Ghost Freak's torso pulsed with more intense blue energy. The Ragon energy integration seems to be enhancing this form's dimensional phase shifting. I can feel access to deeper levels of intangibility than before. To demonstrate, Ghost Freak's form became singly transparent until only the faintest outline remained visible, the blue energy along the chains the only distinct feature. Remarkable, Rias whispered. You're approaching what we would call spectral phase, the state between physical manifestation and spiritual essence. Ghost Freak returned to normal visibility before transforming back to human form. Ben steadied himself against a nearby column, the transformation having taken more energy than usual. That form is always draining, he explained, noting their concerned expressions. Even more so with these new enhancements. You conserve your strength for the actual match, Rias advised. Speaking of which, we should prepare. The demonstration will begin soon, and there are protocols to observe. As they left the training chamber, Kiba fell into step beside Ben. I hope our sparring provided useful insights. Definitely, Ben assured him. You're an excellent fighter. Reminded me a bit of my friend Kevin, though with more formal training and less street fighting instinct. Kiba smiled at the comparison. I'd be interested in hearing more about your friends and world after the match. It's not often we get perspectives from entirely different dimensions. It's a deal, Ben agreed. Though fair warning, my stories tend to sound unbelievable even by the standards of a world with devils and dragons. After what I've seen of your transformations, Heba replied with genuine respect, I'm inclined to believe almost anything. The preparation area for the demonstration match resembled a high-tech locker room combined with ceremonial space. Ornate symbols adorned the walls alongside what appeared to be viewing screens showing the arena where the match would take place, a replica of the Occult Research Club building and surrounding grounds. They're recreating familiar territory, Ben noted with surprise. Standard practice for exhibition matches, Rias explained. Since this isn't an official rating game, they've chosen neutral ground that both participants have experienced. Grayfia materialized from a silver transportation circle, her expression professionally neutral as always. The preparations are complete. Lord Searsex, the other Satans, and representatives from multiple factions await the demonstration. She handed Ben what appeared to be a small communication device resembling an earpiece. This will allow you to hear the announcements and rules during the match. Ben accepted it with thanks, securing it in place. Any last-minute advice? Remember that while Riser's regeneration is his primary defense, his offensive capabilities shouldn't be underestimated, Grayfia stated. The Phoenix flames burn hotter than conventional fire and can manifest in various forms, including explosive force and directional attacks. Also, Rias added, this match will be closely observed by individuals beyond those visibly present. Your capabilities will be assessed by multiple factions for their own purposes. Consider carefully what you choose to reveal. Ben nodded, understanding the political dimensions at play. I'll keep that in mind. It is time, Grayfia announced. Please, step onto the transportation circle when ready. Ben moved to the center of the ornate circle inscribed on the floor, its silver light already beginning to pulse in preparation. He turned to Rias with a confident smile. Don't worry, I've had plenty of experience being thrown into unexpected fights. Rias returned the smile with one of her own, equal parts aristocratic pride and genuine warmth. I'm not worried, I've seen enough to know you're full of surprises, Ben Tennyson. The transportation circle flared to life, and Ben found himself standing in the middle of the recreated Occult Research Club grounds. The simulation was perfect down to the smallest detail, from the weathering on the old schoolhouse to the particular pattern of trees surrounding the clearing. Across the field stood Riser Phoenix, his expression conveying supreme confidence bordering on boredom. He wore an open burgundy jacket that revealed his chest, with matching pants and designer shoes that seemed impractical for combat. So the dimensional visitor deigns to appear, Riser called out, his voice carrying easily across the distance. I was beginning to wonder if you'd reconsider facing a true devil of noble lineage. Ben resisted the urge to roll his eyes at the pompous declaration. I never back down from a challenge, especially ones that help me understand a new world better. A disembodied voice, presumably the announcer, echoed throughout the arena. This demonstration match between Lord Riser Phoenix of the House of Phoenix and Ben Tennyson, interdimensional visitor, will commence momentarily. Standard exhibition rules apply. The match continues until one participant surrenders, is rendered unable to continue, or at the discretion of the judges if a clear conclusion has been reached. Lethal force is prohibited, though temporary incapacitation is permitted. Riser stretched casually, flames dancing between his fingers. I'll try to ensure there's enough of you left to study afterward. Devils are quite interested in interdimensional phenomena, after all. Your concern is touching, Ben replied dryly. Ready when you are. Begin, the announcer declared. Riser wasted no time, launching forward with impressive speed as flames erupted around his entire body, forming bird-like wings that propelled him toward Ben with explosive force. Ben activated the Omnitrix, the holographic interface appearing for just a moment before he selected his transformation. The green-blue light engulfed him just as Riser's flaming fist approached. When the transformation completed, what street ood in Ben's place was not one of the forms he had demonstrated previously. This alien resembled a 9-foot-tall humanoid tiger with orange fur, black stripes, and no visible eyes. Rippling muscles bulged beneath the thick fur, and the Ultimatrix symbol glowed at the center of his chest with blue-green light. Wrath, the transformed Ben roared, catching Riser's flaming fist in his oversized hand. Without apparent concern for the flames. Let me tell you something, riser Phoenix of the House of Phenex. Wrath doesn't care about your fancy fire powers or your stupid noble lineage. Riser's eyes widened in genuine surprise, both at the transformation and at the fact that his flames seemed to have minimal effect on the massive tiger-like being gripping his fist. What manner of creature is this? He demanded, attempting to pull free from Wrath's grip without success. Wrath is wrath, came the bellowed response as the massive alien lifted Riser bodily from the ground and hurled him with tremendous force across the arena. And Wrath thinks your attitude needs adjustment. Riser crashed through several trees before regaining control, his regeneration instantly repairing the damage as flames reformed around him. Impressive strength, he acknowledged with a smirk. But brute force alone cannot overcome a Phoenix. He launched a concentrated blast of flames that engulfed Wrath entirely. Heat so intense it melted the ground beneath into glass. When the flames cleared, Wrath stood with singed fur but otherwise unharmed, looking more annoyed than injured. Let me tell you something, fire chicken. Wrath has fought Pyronites who burn hot enough to melt through spacecraft hulls. Your flames are like a warm breeze to Wrath. From the viewing area, Rias watched with barely contained amusement. That transformation is unexpectedly entertaining. Appletechian species, Grayfia noted, consulting data provided by her observation magic. Primarily physical combat orientation with enhanced durability and aggression. An interesting choice against a Phoenix. Back in the arena, Wrath charged forward with surprising speed for his bulk, executing a series of professional wrestling in spurred moves that seemed simultaneously absurd and effective. Each impact drove Riser into the ground with tremendous force, only for the Phoenix Devil to regenerate and counterattack with increasingly intense flames. Your beast form has admirable endurance, Riser commented as he regenerated from being folded into what Wrath had loudly proclaimed was a cosmic clothesline of catastrophe. But you're merely prolonging the inevitable. I regenerate instantly, you gradually weaken. The outcome is predetermined. Predetermined. Let me tell you something about predetermined. Wrath roared, but Hen stopped mid-sentence as blue energy pulsed from the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The symbol expanded, projecting 4 spikes as energy coursed through Wrath's form. His body grew another foot taller, the fur becoming more dense and taking on a metallic quality. Armor-like plates emerged along his shoulders and forearms, and his claws extended into serrated edges that gleamed like polished steel. Ultimate Wrath, the evolved form declared, his voice deeper and somehow even more intense. Now let me tell you something about evolution. The viewing area erupted in surprised murmurs. Even Searsex leaned forward with renewed interest. The ultimate function, Rias whispered. He's accessing it mid-battle. Ultimate Wrath moved with blinding speed, his enhanced form crossing the distance to Riser in a fraction of a second. What followed was a demonstration of combat prowess that transcended mere brawling, each movement precisely calculated despite the berserker persona, each strike targeting specific points that momentarily disrupted Riser's flame generation before regeneration could restore it. Cosmic Lariat, Ultimate Wrath bellowed, executing a spinning attack that separated Riser's upper body from his lower half. The Devil's regeneration began instantly, flames connecting the separated sections, but before it could complete, Ultimate Wrath followed with another strike. Serious suplex. The massive tiger-like being grabbed the partially regenerated Riser and executed a perfect suplex that drove him headfirst into the ground with such force that a crater formed. Again, Riser began to regenerate, but Ultimate Wrath wasn't finished. Blue energy gathered around his claws as he slashed through the air itself, creating visible distortions in space. Dimensional dislocation drop, he roared, bringing both hands down onto Riser as the Devil attempted to stand. The impact created a shockwave that rippled outward, temporarily disrupting the very fabric of the simulation. For the first time, Riser's regeneration slowed visibly, his expression showing genuine concern. What have you done? He demanded, flames struggling to maintain consistency around his form. That attack, it affected my connection to my house's power. Ultimate Wrath stood over him, metallic fur gleaming in the light of Riser's weakened flames. The ultimate function doesn't just make Wrath stronger, it makes Wrath smarter. Your regeneration requires dimensional energy from your family's connection to the mythological phoenix. Wrath just temporarily disrupted that connection. In the viewing area, Sears exchanged a meaningful look with Grayfia. He identified the metaphysical mechanics behind Fennec's regeneration in the middle of combat, the Satan said quietly. That's unprecedented analytical capability. Riser struggled to his feet, his usual confident demeanor replaced by genuine effort as he forced his regeneration to continue through sheer willpower. Impressive, but not enough to defeat a Phoenix permanently. Our connection to the immortal Phoenix transcends dimensional disruption. Wrath doesn't need to defeat you permanently. Ultimate Wrath declared, crossing his massive arms across his armored chest. Wrath just needed to prove a point. With that, Ultimate Wrath reverted first to regular Wrath, then to human form in successive flashes of green-blue light. Ben stood calmly facing the still recovering Riser, the Ultimatrix glowing steadily on his wrist. The point, Ben continued in his normal voice, being that regeneration isn't invincibility. Every power has limitations and vulnerabilities, even immortality. Riser's flames had returned to full intensity, his regeneration complete, but his expression had changed from arrogant dismissal to wary respect. You could have continued the attack while my regeneration was compromised, he observed. Why stop? Because this was a demonstration match, not a battle to the death, Ben replied simply. I showed enough to make my point without unnecessarily humiliating an important figure in Devil Society. Where I come from, that's called professional courtesy. The announcement system activated once more. The demonstration match has concluded by mutual cessation of hostilities. Both participants remain capable of continuing, but the primary objective of power assessment has been achieved. Lord Sears has declared the demonstration complete and invites both participants to join him in the reception hall. Riser straightened his jacket, his dignified bearing returning now that the immediate threat had passed. Your understanding of devil politics is more nuanced than I expected, interdimensional visitor. Perhaps there is more to you than merely impressive transformations. Quote, I've had some experience navigating complex political situations, Ben replied. Though usually with aliens rather than devils. A transportation circle formed beneath them, returning both combatants to the preparation area where Rias, Kiba, and Grayfia awaited. That was unexpected, Rias commented with poorly concealed delight. I don't think anyone has ever disrupted Fennec's regeneration quite like that before. The ultimate function's integration with dragon energy produced unforeseen capabilities, Grayfia observed clinically, though Ben thought he detected a hint of approval in her silver eyes. The dimensional disruption effect in particular represents a significant tactical advantage against certain supernatural beings. Riser, maintaining his dignity despite the demonstration's outcome, addressed Rias directly. Your new associate's capabilities are indeed impressive, Rias. However, do not assume this changes anything regarding our arrangement. One unusual combatant does not offset the balance of power between our houses. Of course not, Rias replied with diplomatic precision. Though it does demonstrate that even the most established powers can face unexpected challenges. Riser's eyes narrowed at the subtle implication, but he maintained his composure. We shall see. The rating game will proceed as scheduled in 2 weeks' time. I suggest you use that time wisely. With a formal bow that somehow managed to remain slightly condescending, he departed through a transportation circle emblazoned with the Phoenix family crest. Once he had gone, Rias turned to Ben with undisguised admiration. That was brilliant. You revealed enough to establish your capabilities without exposing all your transformation options. And that ultimate function, you didn't mention. And it could disrupt dimensional connections. I didn't know it could, Ben admitted. That was new. The Ultimatrix is still adapting to this dimension's energy patterns, creating new applications for existing powers. The dragon energy seems to be enhancing the transformations, fundamental properties rather than just adding raw power. The strategic implications are significant, Kiba noted thoughtfully. If your transformations can affect supernatural connections to their power sources, it opens possibilities we hadn't considered. Rias completed the thought, her scientific curiosity evident. We should document these observations thoroughly. Grayfia consulted her materialized pocket watch. Lord Sears awaits your presence in the reception hall. The representatives from various factions will be eager to meet the interdimensional visitor who demonstrated such unusual capabilities. Ben groaned slightly. Politics. I was hoping to avoid that part. Unfortunately, Grayfia replied with the faintest hint of sympathy, Politics is unavoidable when one possesses power in our world. Particularly power as unique as yours. The reception hall proved to be a vast chamber with soaring ceilings and walls that seemed to be composed of living crystal that shifted colors subtly in response to the emotions of those nearby. Attendees from various supernatural factions mingled with practiced diplomatic smiles and calculating eyes, all of which turned toward Ben as he entered with Rias and Grayfia. Sears X approached immediately, accompanied by 3 individuals whose power signatures registered as comparable to his own, the other Satans, Ben assumed. Ben Tennyson, Sears X greeted warmly. That was quite a demonstration. Allow me to introduce my fellow Satans, Ajuka Beelzebub, Seraphol Leviathan, and Falbium Asmodeus. Ajuka, a distinguished man with green hair and a scholarly demeanor, studied Ben with unabashed scientific interest. The dimensional disruption FFECT or transformation demonstrated has fascinating implications. I would very much like to discuss the theoretical principles behind it. Seraphol, surprisingly youthful in appearance and dressed in what appeared to be a magical girl costume complete with wand, beamed enthusiastically. So cool, a real interdimensional hero with super transformation powers. We should totally do a crossover episode for my show. Falbium, a sleepy-looking man with a perpetually bored expression, merely nodded acknowledgement. Interesting capabilities. Troublesome political implications. Ben shook hands with each Satan, maintaining the diplomatic composure he'd developed through years of interplanetary negotiations. It's an honor to meet you all. I appreciate your accommodation of my unexpected arrival in your dimension. Nonsense. Seraphol replied cheerfully. Unexpected interdimensional visitors with unique powers are the most interesting thing to happen around here in decades. Everyone's talking about you. As if to confirm her assessment, representatives from various factions approached in carefully calculated succession over the next hour. Ben met angels with golden halos and multiple wings, the number apparently indicating rank, fallen angels with black wings and skeptical expressions, yokai of various types including a 9-tailed fox woman of extraordinary beauty, and devils from numerous noble houses. Throughout it all, Rias remained close by, providing context and background information through discreet whispers that helped Ben navigate the complex political landscape. Grayfia occasionally intervened when conversations veered toward sensitive topics, her mere presence often enough to redirect the discussion to safer ground. The angels seem particularly interested in your home dimension's lack of supernatural beings, Rias observed after a conversation with a representative named Irina who claimed to be a childhood friend of someone in Rias's peerage Ben hadn't met yet. I suspect they're trying to determine if my world represents some kind of natural state, without divine or demonic influence, Ben replied thoughtfully. Though they seemed disappointed when I mentioned we still have plenty of conflict and moral complexity without supernatural involvement. Theological implications, Grayfia noted. Your existence challenges certain fundamental assumptions about the nature of creation. A new voice entered the conversation, melodic, ancient, and tinged with amusement. All the best discoveries do, don't they? They turned to find a woman of saint-ricking beauty with blue hair and eyes of an impossible depth that seemed to contain galaxies within them. Her power signature registered on Ben's newly developed supernatural senses as fundamentally different from the other beings he'd encountered, deeper, more primal, connected to forces beyond conventional classification. Lady Tiamat, Grayfia acknowledged with a formal bow deeper than any Ben had seen her offer previously. We did not expect the honor of your presence. Rias likewise bowed with evident respect tinged with wariness. Lady Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon honors us with her attendance. The woman, dragon, smiled with ancient amusement. When dimensional barriers fluctuate and dragon energy finds new vessels, my curiosity inevitably awakens. Her gaze fixed on Ben with penetrating intensity. You carry interesting patterns within your transformation device, Interdimensional 1. Patterns that resonate with draconic frequencies not native to this world. Ben met her gaze steadily, though it felt like staring into the depths of an ocean trench. The Omnitrix adapts to and integrates with the energy patterns of whatever environment it encounters. In this dimension, that apparently includes dragon energy. Quote, not just any dragon energy, Tiamat replied, reaching out to hover her hand near the Omnitrix without quite touching it. Your device has tasted chaos, the fundamental draconic principle from which all dragon powers derive. That makes you interesting. I've been called many things, Ben replied with a slight smile, but interesting is definitely better than most of them. Tiamat laughed, a sound like distant thunder wrapped in silk. Oh, I do like this one, Grimoire Princess. He faces the unfathomable with humor rather than fear. She returned her attention to Ben. We will speak again, holder of many forms. Your journey in our world has barely begun, and I suspect our paths are destined to cross repeatedly before its conclusion. With that cryptic statement, she departed as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving a momentary silence in her wake. That, Rias finally said, was unexpected. Tiamat rarely attends gatherings of the younger races. Younger races? Ben questioned. Dragons predate angels, devils, and most other supernatural beings, Grayfia explained. They are primordial forces given conscious form, closer to fundamental aspects of reality than conventional living beings. And she's interested in you specifically, Rias added with a mixture of concern and fascination. That could be either tremendously beneficial or extremely complicated, depending on her intentions. Story of my life, Ben replied with a resigned sigh. Ever since I found the original Omnitrix when I was 10, powerful beings have been acting an interest in me, usually not for vacation planning purposes. The reception continued for another hour before Sirzek's finally approached to inform them they could take their leave. You've made quite an impression, Ben Tennyson. Representatives from every major faction have requested further information about you and your capabilities. Which you'll provide at your discretion, I assume? Ben asked with a knowing smile. Sirzek returned the smile with one of equal understanding. Information is perhaps the most valuable currency in supernatural politics. Your demonstration today has given House Grimoire a momentary advantage in that economy, one we'll leverage appropriately. In return for your hospitality and assistance with my dimensional situation, Ben acknowledged. A fair arrangement. I'm glad we understand each other, Sirzek replied with genuine approval. Rias will continue as your primary contact and guide in our world. Grayfia will arrange any necessary resources or access you require for investigating your dimensional displacement. After formal farewells, a transportation circle returned Ben, Rias, and Kiba to the human world, specifically, to Ben's temporary apartment. Now enhanced with additional furnishings and what appeared to be a comprehensive research station with books, scrolls, and a device resembling a magical computer. Courtesy of my brother, Rias explained, noting Ben's surprise at the additions. These resources contain information about dimensional theory, dragon lore, and supernatural energy manipulation that might help you understand your situation better. Kiba examined the collection with professional appreciation. Some of these texts are from the restricted archives. Lord Sirzek must be taking your research needs very seriously. Or he's very interested in what I might discover, Ben observed, picking up a tome bound in what appeared to be scales rather than leather. Information flows both ways, after all. Precisely. Rias confirmed without pretense. My brother recognizes the potential value in understanding interdimensional travel and the integration of dragon energy with technology. Your presence presents an unprecedented research opportunity. As long as we're being transparent about mutual benefit, Ben replied with a nod of approval. That works for me. Kiba checked his watch. I should return to my patrol duties. The others will be eager to hear about today's events. He offered Ben a respectful bow. Your performance against Riser was impressive. I look forward to our next training session. After Kiba departed, Rias lingered, examining the research materials with evident scientific interest. We should establish a systematic approach to this information. Some of these texts reference interdimensional theory dating back to the earliest recorded devil history. You don't have to help with the research, Ben said, though he appreciated the offer. You must have your own responsibilities with your peerage in the upcoming rating game. Rias looked up from the text she was examining, her aquamarine eyes meeting his with unexpected intensity. You helped me today without hesitation. Your demonstration against Riser revealed vulnerabilities in his fighting style that may prove crucial in our rating game. Consider this reciprocation. Ben recognized the pride beneath her words, the determination to balance the scales rather than accept help without returning value. It reminded him of Gwen's stubborn insistence on handling her share of any burden, no matter how dire the circumstances. In that case, he replied with a smile, I appreciate the assistance. 2 interdimensional researchers are definitely better than 1. They settled into a comfortable routine, sorting through materials and establishing categories for further investigation. Rias proved to have a brilliant analytical mind, quickly identifying key concepts in complex magical texts and relating them to Ben's descriptions of his own dimension's physical laws. The fundamental difference appears to be in how energy manifests, she explained, comparing diagrams from a devil text with the Omnitrix's holographic model of Ben's home dimension. Your universe operates primarily through physical forces, electromagnetism, gravity, strong and weak nuclear forces, with consciousness as an emergent property of complexity. While your dimension seems to have consciousness and will as fundamental forces themselves, Ben concluded, following her reasoning. Magic being the direct manipulation of reality through focused consciousness rather than physical interaction. Exactly. Rias's eyes lit up with intellectual excitement. Which explains why your device can integrate with our dimension's energy patterns. It's recognizing consciousness as an energy form it can catalog and utilize, just as it does with physical energy types. Their research continued late into the evening, moving from general dimensional theory to specific information about dragons and their relationship to interdimensional travel. They discovered references to dragons as boundary walkers, capable of moving between dimensional planes through inherent connection to chaos energy, the primordial force that existed before structured reality. This might explain why the Omnitrix integrated dragon energy so readily, Ben theorized. Examining a particularly ancient text. If dragons naturally possess interdimensional capabilities, the device would prioritize that energy signature as potentially useful for returning home. Rias nodded thoughtfully, making notes in what appeared to be a magical journal that organized information through glowing connections between concepts. And Tiamat's interest in you makes more sense in this context. As a dragon king, she would naturally be curious about new interdimensional phenomena connected to dragon energy. Ben leaned back in his chair, processing everything they had learned. So to summarize, I'm stuck in a dimension of devils, angels, and dragons because the Omnitrix is trying to gather enough dragon energy to create a return portal. Meanwhile, Varia's factions are interested in me for their own purposes, and I've somehow gotten involved in a magical engagement dispute between you and a regenerating fire chicken. Rias laughed, a genuine sound of amusement that momentarily transformed her from dignified devil aristocrat to a young woman enjoying an absurd situation. When you put it that way, it does sound rather ridiculous. Trust me, Ben replied with a grin. This isn't even in my top 5 weirdest interdimensional incidents. At least this time I haven't been turned into a toddler or had to fight an evil version of myself from an alternate timeline. Those things actually happened to you. Tuesday and Thursday, respectively, of a particularly bad week when I was 16. Their shared laughter dissolved the last of the formality between them, establishing a comfortable rapport born of mutual respect and shared intellectual curiosity. Eventually, Rias gathered her notes and prepared to depart. I should return to the others. After today's events, there will be much to discuss regarding our strategy for the raiding game. Riser will be expecting me to get involved somehow, Ben observed. After today's demonstration, he'll be preparing counters for my transformation capabilities. Let him prepare, Rias replied with newfound confidence. What he doesn't understand is that your greatest power isn't any particular transformation, it's your adaptability and strategic thinking. She met his gaze directly. The same qualities I intend to cultivate in my peerage before our confrontation. Ben walked her to the door. For what it's worth, I think your chances are better than you believe. From what I've seen of your peerage members so far, there's extraordinary potential there. It just needs the right catalyst to fully manifest. Rias paused at the threshold, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps that's exactly what your arrival represents, a catalyst for change. She smiled with genuine warmth. Rest well, Ben Tennyson. Tomorrow we continue our research, and you'll meet the rest of my peerage properly. After she departed, Ben returned to the research materials, selecting one final text before retiring. A treatise on dragon energy manifestation that might explain the continuing evolution of his transformations. As he read, The Ultimatrix pulsed with steady blue-green light, its integration with this dimension's supernatural energies progressing with each passing hour. Outside the apartment, unnoticed by its occupant, three figures maintained their vigilant observation from different vantage points. The cat-eyed woman in the shadows, the white-armored figure on distant rooftops, and the ancient draconic presence that watched with growing interest, all drawn to the interdimensional visitor whose arrival had sent ripples through the careful balance of power in a world of devils, angels, and dragons. For Ben Tennyson, dimensional displacement had always been a temporary inconvenience. But as he drifted to sleep surrounded by texts describing the fundamental forces of this new reality, he couldn't shake the feeling that this time was different, that the Ultimatrix's integration with Dragon energy represented not just a pathway home, but a transformation more fundamental than any alien form it had ever provided. The question remained, when the time came to return to his own dimension, what exactly would he be bringing back with him? Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Draconic Emergence. Ben's eyes snapped open at precisely 3:17 a.m. Something had changed. Not in his surroundings, but within him. The Ultimatrix pulsed with an unfamiliar rhythm, its standard green-blue glow now threaded with veins of iridescent energy that seemed to shift between colors that had no proper names in human language. Sitting up, he examined the device with growing concern. The holographic interface activated without his touch, projecting symbols and diagrams that resembled both advanced mathematics and arcane sigils simultaneously. Ultimatrix, Ben whispered, his voice unnaturally loud in the pre-dawn silence. Status report. Integration Phase 3 initiated. The device responded, its mechanica. L voice now layered with harmonic undertones that reminded Ben of crystalline resonance. Dragon energy assimilation reaching critical threshold. New transformation template stabilizing. The holographic display shifted, now showing the silhouette Ben had glimpsed before, a humanoid figure with distinctly draconic elements, surrounded by swirling energy patterns that matched nothing in Ben's extant Sieve experience with alien transformations. Dimensional Dragon transformation sequence ready for initial activation, the Ultimatrix announced. Warning. Power levels exceed established safety parameters. Containment protocols may be insufficient. Ben swung his legs over the side of the bed, fully awake now. Define. Insufficient containment protocols. Dragon energy classified as primordial force predating dimensional constants. Complete integration may result in temporary breakdown of local spacetime fabric. Recommendation. Initial transformation should occur in isolated environment with minimal structural vulnerability. Great, Ben muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. So I've got a transformation that might tear apart reality if I use it in my apartment. That's a new one. The Ultimatrix's display shifted again, highlighting a location several miles outside the city, a mountainous area with minimal population and natural geological features capable of absorbing significant energy discharge. Recommended testing ground identified, the device stated. Transformation stability increases with controlled initial activation. Ben glanced at the clock, still hours before dawn, when he was supposed to meet Rias in her complete peerage for formal introductions. He weighed his options. Wait and consult with Rias about this development, potentially riskin' an uncontrolled activation if the transformation continued to evolve, or take the initiative to test it in a controlled environment while the city slept. Years of experience with unexpected Omnitrix and Ultimatrix developments had taught him that waiting rarely improved the situation. Looks like I'm taking a pre-dawn hike, he decided, pulling on clothes and the jacket Kiba had loaned him. See, and you provide navigational guidance to the recommended location. Affirmative. Topographical data acquired from local information networks. Optimal route calculated. Ben left a brief note in case someone checked his apartment before he returned, then slipped out into the quiet streets. The city at night had an ethereal quality, subtle magical energies visible to his increasingly sensitive perception as gossamer threads connecting certain buildings and locations, what the texts he'd studied with Rias had called ley lines, natural channels of magical energy that supernatural beings often utilized for their activities. Following the Ultimatrix's directions, Ben made his way to the city's edge and into the forested foothills beyond. The journey took nearly an hour, the path leading daily upward through increasingly wild terrain until he reached a secluded valley ringed by steep stone cliffs. A small lake occupied the center, its surface mirror smooth in the pre-dawn stillness, reflecting stars with perfect clarity. Optimal transformation location reached, the Omnitrix confirmed. Natural energy containment features present. Geomagnetic stability at acceptable levels. Ben stood at the lake's edge, mentally preparing himself. New transformations always carried an element of unpredictability, but this felt different, more significant, as if he stood at a threshold bayou. ND which something fundamental would change. All right, he said, activating the holographic interface. Let's see what a dimensional dragon looks like. The new transformation icon pulsed at the center of the display, distinct from any alien form he'd previously used. Ben selected it, and immediately felt the difference in the energy flow. Instead of the usual outward transformation, this energy seemed to emerge from within. As if something dormant in his own being was awakening rather than being imposed from outside. The green-blue light engulfed him, but now interwoven with strands of that nameless iridescent energy that seemed to bend light around itself. The transformation process stretched longer than usual, each molecular reconfiguration accompanied by subtle shifts in the very fabric of local reality. When it finally completed, Ben experienced consciousness from an entirely new perspective. His body now stood approximately 9 feet tall with a humanoid structure covered in scales that shifted color with his thoughts, currently a deep sapphire blue threaded with emerald patterns. A pair of draconic wings extended from his back, their membranes so thin they appeared translucent yet radiated unmistakable power. His hands featured retractable claws of crystalline material that refracted light into prismatic patterns, and his face had elongated into a draconic visage with horns that curved elegantly backward from his forehead. Most disconcerting was his perception. He could see not just the physical world but the underlying energy patterns that composed it, layers of reality normally invisible to human senses now plainly evident. The lake before him wasn't merely water but a complex interplay of molecular bonds, gravitational influences, and magical resonances connected to deeper systems throughout the region. Dimensional dragon, he spoke, his voice simultaneously deeper and more melodic, carrying harmonics that caused ripples to form on the lake's surface. The very air around him seemed to thicken with potential energy, responding to his presence like an atmosphere acknowledging a change in pressure. He extended one clawed hand experimentally, focusing on the energy patterns he could now perceive. In response, the air before him distorted, forming a localized pocket where space itself folded slightly, not quite a portal, but a demonstration that the fundamental fabric of reality responded to his will in this form. This is, he began, struggling to find words adequate to describe the sensation. Extraordinary, seemed insufficient, overwhelming, too negative. He settled on illuminating. Taking a careful step forward, he noticed that his movements left momentary afterimages, as if parts of him existed simultaneously across microscopically different timelines. The wings on his back responded to his thoughts, unfurling to their full span, nearly 20 feet from tip to tip, their surface now shimmering with constellations of energy that mirrored the night sky above. On impulse, he tested their functionality, powerful muscles he had never possessed before contracting in precise sequence. The wings displaced air with tremendous force, launching him skyward with an acceleration that should have been disorienting but somehow felt natural in this form. Rising above the valley, Dimensional Dragon hovered with effortless precision, his wings occasionally pulsing with energy that maintained his position without continuous flapping. From this height, the patterns of natural and supernatural energy across the landscape became even more apparent, flowing rivers of power that connected sacred sites, population centers, and natural formations in complex geometric relationships. The Omnitrix has outdone itself this time, he murmured, his voice causing subtle vibrations in the air around him. This isn't just a transformation, it's a fundamental shift in how I interface with reality. He experimented with movement, covering that this form allowed not only conventional flight but something closer to spatial translocation. By focusing on the space between points, he could compress the intervening distance, effect 4. Ely moving faster than his physical acceleration would suggest possible. As his confidence grew, he tested more advanced applications, discovering that he could perceive weaknesses in the dimensional barriers around him. places where reality was naturally thinner, where other planes of existence pressed closest to the physical world. By concentrating on these points, he could create small, tempora windows that showed glimpses of other realms, swirling voids of primal chaos, crystalline landscapes of perfect order, and domains of pure conceptual existence where thought itself took physical form. The power was intoxicating, offering perspectives and capabilities beyond anything even his most advanced alien transformations had provided. Yet with that power came a disturbing realization: this form didn't feel entirely external. Unlike his usual transformations, where Ben Tennyson's consciousness directed an alien body, Dimensional Dragon felt like an awakening of something that had always existed within him, merely dormant until the proper energies catalyzed its emergence. I need to maintain focus, he reminded himself, recognizing the seductive nature of such power. This form is a tool, not an identity. The eastern horizon had begun to lighten with pre-dawn glow when Dimensional Dragon detected a presence entering the valley below, a powerful energy signature that registered as ancient, primal, and unmistakably draconic. Focusing his enhanced senses, he identified Tiamat approaching the lake, her human form belying the vast power it contained. She looked up directly at him. Despite the considerable altitude and pre-dawn darkness, her eyes reflecting starlight with unnerving precision. The hatchling tests his wings, her voice reached him clearly across the distance. Carried not by sound waves but by draconic resonance that bypassed conventional physical limitations. Come down, young one. Let us speak properly. Dimensional Dragon descended in a controlled spiral, landing at the lake's edge with surprising grace for his size. Standing before Tiamat, he towered over her human form, yet felt distinctly like the lesser presence in their exchange. Lady Tiamat, he acknowledged, inclining his draconic head respectfully. I didn't expect company during this morning's experiment. She circled him slowly, her expression revealing genuine fascination. When a new dragon emerges into the world, those of us who have existed since time's dawn take notice, particularly when that emergence rewrites established rules of draconic manifestation. I'm not actually a dragon. Dimensional Dragon clarified. This is a transformation, temporary, controlled by the Omnitrix. Is it? Tiamat asked with ancient amusement. Look at yourself in the lake's reflection, Dimensional Walker. He turned toward the water, seeing his draconic form mirrored on its still surface. What caught his attention, however, was not his transformed appearance but the altimeter X symbol, usually prominently displayed on his chest or shoulder in any transformation. In this form, it had changed, becoming more integrated with his draconic body, the familiar hourglass pattern No. W resembling an Ouroboros, a dragon swallowing its own tail, surrounding the traditional symbol. The device isn't merely transforming you anymore, Tiamat observed. It's responding to changes occurring within your fundamental nature. The dragon energy isn't just a power source your device is utilizing, it's awakening something latent in your dimensional frequency. Dimensional Dragon stared at his reflection, processing this disturbing implication. That's not possible. I'm human, from a dimension without supernatural beings or dragon energy. Are you certain? Tiamat asked, her voice carrying ancient wisdom. The multiverse contains infinite variations, infinite possibilities. Perhaps in your dimension, what you call aliens are expressions of energies that in our world manifest as supernatural beings. Perhaps the very capability to transform between forms speaks to a nature that transcends simple biological classification. She reached out, placing her hand against his scaled che saint directly over the transformed Omnitrix symbol. Where their energies connected, iridescent patterns flowed between them like living circuitry. Yes, she murmured, eyes half closed in concentration. I see it now. You've touched dimensional boundaries repeatedly throughout your existence. Each transition, each transformation, has left its mark on your fundamental pattern. You were never simply human. Ben Tennyson, you were always becoming something more. This dimension has merely catalyzed a process long underway. Dimensional Dragon stepped back, uncomfortable with both her touch and her words. This form is temporary. When I deactivate the transformation, I return to human form. Do you? Tiamat challenged gently. Or do you return to a form that approximates your original human state? While carrying more of these changes within you each time, ask yourself, has your human perception remained unchanged since arriving in our dimension. The question struck uncomfortably close to truth. Ben had noticed his increasing sensitivity to supernatural energies even in human form, the ability to see ley lines tonight being only the latest manifestation. "What exactly are you suggesting?" he asked, voice rumbling with subharmonics that caused water droplets to dance across the lake's surface. "Merely that you approach your situation with open awareness," Tiamat replied. "The transformation you now experience is not simply another form in your collection, it represents an evolutionary threshold, a bridge between what you were and what you may become." She gestured toward the lightening sky. "Dawn approaches, and with it, your obligations to the young Grimoire and her household. I suggest you practice returning to your previous form before attempting to explain this development to them." Dimensional Dragon nodded, focusing on deactivation. The Ultimatrix symbol pulsed with iridescent light, but the transformation remained stable. "Interesting," he murmured. "The deactivation sequence isn't responding normally. Your will must encompass the transition," Tiamat advised. "This form responds to deeper intention, not merely mechanical command." Following her guidance, Dimensional Dragon closed his eyes, focusing not on the device but on his self-concept, the image of Ben Tennyson he carried within. Gradually, the iridescent energy receded, flowing back into the Ultimatrix in reverse of the transformation sequence. When it completed, Ben stood in human form once more, though he noted with concern that faint scale-like patterns briefly shimmered beneath his skin before fading from view. "An impressive first manifestation," Tiamat commented, studying him with renewed interest. "Most young dragons require centuries to achieve such control of their primal form." "I'm not a..." Ben began automatically, then stopped. "This is temporary, a result of the Ultimatrix adapting to this dimension's energies. Once I return to my home dimension." "If you return," Tiamat corrected gently. "And if that return doesn't further catalyze the changes already underway. Dimensional transitions are not without consequence, young one." The eastern sky had brightened considerably, early morning light spilling over the mountaintops into the valley. "I should go," Ben said, checking the time. "Rias is expecting me for formal introductions to her complete peerage." "Of course," Tiamat nodded. "The social obligations of the younger races. Important in their own way." She turned as if to leave, then paused. "One final observation, if I may." Ben nodded cautiously. "The transformation you experienced today, it draws upon dragon energy, yes, but specifically Chaos Dragon lineage." "My lineage." Her eyes met his with primordial depth. "Which makes you, in certain mystic traditions, my descendant. Remember that when others seek to claim you for their purposes." Before Ben could respond to this startling declaration, Tiamat simply stepped sideways, somehow crossing the threshold between dimensions without any visible portal or magical circle. One moment present, the next simply elsewhere, leaving Ben alone by the lake with the morning sun illuminating questions he wasn't prepared to answer. By the time Ben returned to his apartment, showered, and changed into clothes Kiba had arranged for him, surprisingly stylish casual wear that fit perfectly, he had almost convinced himself that Tiamat's more disturbing implications were merely the traditional cryptic speech of an ancient being who saw everything through the lens of draconic tradition. The Ultimatrix had stabilized again, its glow returning to the more familiar green-blue pattern with only occasional pulses of iridescent energy. The holographic interface showed the Dimensional Dragon transformation fully integrated into his roster, but now with a warning label indicating high energy requirement and dimensional stability impact, alongside the transformation option. A knock at his door announced Rias's arrival precisely on schedule. "Good morning," she greeted with a warm smile that momentarily banished his concerns. Today she wore casual weekend attire rather than her school uniform, a simple crimson blouse and black skirt that somehow managed to look both elegant and approachable. "I trust you slept well after yesterday's excitement." "Well enough," Ben replied, deciding to wait for a more appropriate moment to discuss the morning's developments. "Though I'm still processing everything that happened in the underworld, your brother certainly knows how to make an interdimensional visitor feel welcome." Rias laughed lightly. "Searsex has always had a flair for diplomatic theater. The formal reception accomplished multiple objectives simultaneously, introducing you to key faction representatives, demonstrating House Grimoire's connection to you, and gathering information about other factions' reactions to your presence. Efficient, Ben acknowledged as they left the apartment. Where are we meeting your peerage? At the old schoolhouse. Everyone is quite eager to meet you formally. Your demonstration against Riser has generated considerable excitement. Rias glanced at him with analytical precision. Though something tells me you have developments of your own to share. Ben raised an eyebrow, impressed by her perception. That obvious. The ultimate. Rix's energy signature has changed since yesterday, she observed. The draconic resonance has deepened, for lack of a better term. Something significant occurred. You could say that, Ben admitted. Deciding honesty was the best approach. The Omnitrix completed integration of a new transformation this morning, something called Dimensional Dragon. I tested it before dawn in an unpopulated area. Rias stopped walking, her expression registering genuine surprise. A draconic transformation, not merely enhanced by dragon energy, but an actual dragon form. Something like that, Ben confirmed. Though, actual dragon, might be understating it. This form was different from any transformation I've experienced before. More fundamental. Rias's scientific curiosity immediately engaged. Different how, exactly? For starters, I could perceive reality in multiple layers, physical structures, energy patterns, dimensional boundaries. The form responded to intention rather than just physical action, allowing manipulation of space itself to a limited degree. That sounds like high-level dragon abilities, Rias noted with growing excitement. Dragons are believed to perceive reality's true structure rather than merely its physical expression. Was the form completely draconic or a hybrid? Humanoid with draconic features, scales, wings, altered physical structure. Ben hesitated, then added, Tiamat was there. This revelation clearly shocked Rias more than the transformation itself. Tiamat appeared during your first transformation. That's unprecedented. Dragon Kings rarely take direct interest in emerging powers unless. She trailed off, studying Ben with newfound intensity. Unless what? Unless they recognize a connection to their own lineage, Rias completed carefully. Dragon Kings are territorial about their metaphysical domains. If Tiamat appeared specifically during your draconic transformation, she mentioned something about Chaos Dragon lineage, Ben confirmed. Recalling the cryptic final statement. Called me her descendant, in certain mystic traditions. Rias's eyes widened further. That's significant beyond anything I anticipated. Tiamat acknowledging a lineage connection to a being from another dimension suggests principles of draconic metaphysics that transcend conventional dimensional boundaries. Her expression shifted FR's own scientific fascination to practical concern. It also means the political implications of your presence here have just become considerably more complex. How so? Dragon lineage is among the most prestigious and feared supernatural classifications, Rias explained as they resumed walking. Even tenuous connections to dragon bloodlines convey significant status in certain circles. A direct acknowledgement from a dragon king essentially places you under their protection while simultaneously marking you as part of their metaphysical territory. So I've been dragon claimed? Ben asked with a mixture of confusion and mild alarm. In a sense, Rias confirmed. Though the practical implications depend on how publicly Tiamat chooses to acknowledge this connection. For now, I suggest we keep this development between us and my peerage until we better understand its ramifications. They had reached the edge of campus, the old schoolhouse visible through the trees. Weekend quiet meant few students were present, allowing them to proceed without drawing attention. One more thing, Ben said before they reached the building. Tiamat suggested that the transformation might be affecting me more fundamentally than my previous alien forms, that repeated use might be causing permanent changes to my base state. Rias considered this with scholarly seriousness. That aligns with certain theories about dragon energy. Unlike most supernatural power sources, dragon energy is considered primordial, existing before the current structure of reality was established. Exposure to such energies has been known to cause permanent metaphysical evolution in other beings. That's not exactly comforting, Ben noted dryly. Perhaps not, Rias acknowledged with unexpected gentleness, but it may explain why your device integrated so readily with this dimension's energies. If you already possessed a latent affinity for dimensional transition due to your years of transformation. Then I was primed for this kind of change. Ben completed the thought, recalling Tiamat's similar observation. The Ultimatrix didn't just randomly adapt to dragon energy, it recognized something compatible within me. Rias nodded, then placed a reassuring hand on his arm. Whatever these changes represent, you're not facing them alone. My household and research resources are at your disposal, and, her expression softened slightly. Speaking personally, I find the study of unprecedented metaphysical phenomena quite fascinating. Ben smiled at her scholarly enthusiasm. Lucky for you, I'm apparently becoming one. The old schoolhouse looked different in daylight, the Victorian architecture more charming than imposing, sunlight warming the aged bricks and casting dappled shadows through surrounding trees. As they approached, Ben sensed multiple energy signatures within, each distinct yet somehow harmonized, the supernatural equivalent of instruments tuned to play together. Rias opened the door without knocking, leading Ben into the main room he remembered from his first night in this dimension. The space had been arranged differently today, with comfortable seating centered around a TSR. Vice and what appeared to be a substantial breakfast spread. 5 individuals rose as they entered, Kiba and Akino, whom Ben had already met, along with 3 others, the small white-haired girl he'd glimpsed briefly, Asia, and a brown-haired boy approximately Ben's age with an energy signature that registered as human with supernatural modifications. Everyone, Rias announced with formal pride, I'd like to properly introduce Ben Tennyson, our visitor from another dimension whose demonstration against Riser Phoenix has already begun changing our situation for the better. Kiba stepped forward first, offering a polite bow. We meet again under less combative circumstances. Yuto Kiba, Knight of Rias Grayfia. Knight, Ben questioned, recalling references to chess pieces in the texts he'd studied. Each member of a Devil's Peerage has a designation based on chess pieces, Rias explained. Knights excel in speed and precision. Akino approached next, her traditional shrine made in A.T. attire replaced today by an elegant purple dress that emphasized her considerable beauty. Akino Himahima, Queen of Rias Grayfia. We're delighted to have you join us today, Ben-san. Her formal words contrasted with the playful assessment in her eyes. The white-haired girl simply nodded, her expression neutral. Kaneko Tuju. Rooks specialize in strength and defense, Rias clarified when Kaneko offered nothing further. Asia stepped forward with a warm smile. We've met, but not formally. Asia Argento, Bishop of Rias Bushu. I'm so happy you're joining us today. Bishops focus on magical ability and support functions. Rias continued the explanation. Finally, the brown-haired boy approached with undisguised enthusiasm. Issei Hyodo, Pawn. Man, your fight against Riser was awesome. Turning into that tiger thing and throwing him around like that, I've been dying to meet you properly. Ben shook hands with each of them, noting the distinctive energy signatures more clearly. Now that his perception had been enhanced by the morning's transformation, Kiba's energy flowed like precisely directed currents, Akino's crackled with barely contained lightning beneath a controlled surface, Kaneko's radiated dense, compressed power with subtle feline undertones, Asia's glowed with gentle healing resonance, and Issei's burned with untapped potential centered around what appeared to be a draconic core sealed within a sacred gear. It's good to meet all of you properly, Ben said sincerely. Rias has explained some of what you're facing with the upcoming rating game. I'm hoping my presence here might be helpful, even if it was accidental. Accidental but fortuitous, Rias observed, gesturing for everyone to be seated. Ben's arrival has already forced a postponement of T. He original rating game timeline and revealed weaknesses in Riser's fighting style. Not to mention it's given us a super-powered interdimensional ally, Issei added enthusiastically. Can you really turn into aliens from your dimension? How many different forms do you have? Could you show us some? Issei, Akino chided gently, perhaps allow our guest to have tea before the interrogation begins. Asia had already begun serving, her movements revealing practiced grace as she prepared each cup according to individual preferences. Ben noticed the care she took. Stronger tea for Kaneko, extra sugar for Issei. A specific herbal blend for Akino, small details that spoke to the genuine familial connection among the group. To answer your questions, Ben said after thanking Asia for his cup, yes. I can transform into various species from my dimension, though the Ultimatrix has been adapting those transformations to incorporate this dimension's energy patterns. As for how many forms, the original count was around 70. But with the Ultimatrix's recalibration and the new ultimate function restoration, the theoretical maximum is significantly higher. Ultimate function? Issei questioned eagerly. It accelerates evolutionary potential, Ben explained, taking a transformation and advancing it along an accelerated timeline as if it had evolved for combat over millions of years. You saw a demonstration with Ultimate Wrath during my match with Riser. The tiger form that disrupted Fennec's regeneration, Kiba noted with professional appreciation. That ability alone could prove decisive in our rating game. Rias nodded agreement, which brings us to our primary agenda today, discussing strategy for the upcoming confrontation with Riser, and how Ben's presence affects our approach. The conversation shifted to tactical planning, with each peerage member describing their abilities, training progress, and potential matchups against Riser's team. Ben listened attentively, occasionally offering insights based on his extensive combat experience against various opponents. The key disadvantage we face is numerical, Kiba explained, displaying a tactical diagram. Riser has a full peerage of 15 members, while we currently field only 6. In a rating game, this allows him to control multiple territories simultaneously while maintaining adequate defense. Which is why we need to focus on quality over quantity, Rias added. Each of you possesses unique capabilities that, properly developed and coordinated, can overcome numerical advantage. Speaking of unique capabilities, Akino interjected, turning to Ben with curious intensity. Rias mentioned you experienced a significant new transformation this morning. Ben glanced at Rias, who nodded permission. Yes, though we're keeping certain aspects confidential for now. The Ultimatrix has integrated enough dragon energy to create a new transformation template it calls Dimensional Dragon, essentially. A draconic form with spatial manipulation abilities. This announcement created varied reactions. Kiba's eyes narrowed with tactical assessment. Akino's lips curved in intrigued amusement, Kaniko's neutral expression flickered briefly with something resembling concern. Asia gasped in wonder, and Issei practically vibrated with excitement. A dragon transformation, Issei exclaimed. That's amazing. I've got a dragon sacred gear. But I haven't been able to manifest any draconic forms yet. Ben noticed the red gauntlet that briefly materialized on Issei's arm, pulsing with energy that resonated with something in the Ultimatrix. The device on his wrist responded with a brief scan, its interface activating automatically. Sacred gear detected. Boosted gear, containing sealed consciousness of the Red Dragon Emperor Drake. Compatibility analysis in progress. All conversation stopped as the Ultimatrix projected a holographic model of Issei's sacred gear, rotating slowly with energy waves highlighted throughout its structure. Dude, your watch is scanning my sacred gear, Issei asked, fascinated rather than alarmed. The Ultimatrix analyzes any unique energy patterns it encounters, Ben explained. Somewhat embarrassed by the device's unauthorized activation. It's trying to understand how sacred gears function, particularly those with dragon energy. The holographic display expanded, now showing comparative analysis between Issei's boosted gear and Ben's dimensional dragon transformation. Connection points illuminated where energies showed similar resonance patterns. Fascinating, Rias murmured, examining the display with scientific precision. The boosted gear's dragon energy and your transformation template share fundamental harmonic structures despite their different origins. The power of Welsh Dragon and the new transformation appear compatible on multiple metaphysical levels, Akino observed, her training in magical theory evident. Almost as if they recognize each other as related draconic manifestations. Kaniko finally broke her silence. Dragons recognize dragons. The simple statement carried unexpected weight, drawing everyone's attention. What do you mean, Kaniko-chan? Asia asked gently. Dragon powers seek each other across boundaries, the small girl elaborated slightly. Attract, repel, resonate. Never neutral. Rias nodded thoughtfully. There's truth to that. Dragon energies rarely coexist without interaction. They either harmonize or conflict based on their fundamental natures. She turned to Ben. This could explain why your device integrated dragon energy so readily upon arrival in our dimension. It sensed Issei's sacred gear nearby and recognized compatible energy patterns. Which means my arrival here might not have been entirely random. Ben concluded, connecting several theoretical pieces. If dragon energy naturally creates resonance across dimensional boundaries, the interdimensional beings I was fighting G might have unintentionally created a pathway along existing draconic connection points. Drawn to the strongest dragon signature in our area, Kiba added, following the logic. Which would be Issei's boosted gear, Akeno confirmed. Issei looked simultaneously proud and confused. So, my sacred gear accidentally helped bring Ben to our dimension. Does that make this my fault? Not fault, Rias corrected. Catalyst, perhaps, an existing connection that made this particular dimensional transition possible when conditions aligned. The Ultimatrix's holographic display shifted again, now showing a complex model of energy flows between Ben's transformation matrix and Issei's sacred gear, with numerical values indicating resonance strength and compatibility metrics. Resonance analysis complete, the device announced. Boosted Gear Dragon Energy Signature Catalog. Compatibility with Dimensional Dragon Transformation, 78.3%. Potential for Synchronized Energy Amplification detected. Synchronized amplification, Ben repeated, uncertain of the implications. Rias's eyes widened with sudden understanding. It's suggesting your dragon transformation could potentially synchronize with Issei's sacred gear, creating enhanced effects for both. That's unprecedented. Sacred gears typically function independently, with few exceptions for specific paired gears. But Ben San's dragon power isn't from a sacred gear, Asia noted with insightful precision. It's a transformation ability from another dimension that's adapted to our world's energy. Maybe that's why normal limitations don't apply. Asia-chan makes an excellent point, Akeno agreed. We may be witnessing the emergence of entirely new metaphysical principles through this interdimensional interaction. The theoretical discussion continued through breakfast, each member contributing perspectives from their different backgrounds and training. Ben found himself impressed by the group's cohesion despite their diverse origins. Asia, the former Holy Maiden, Kaneko, whose feline energy suggested supernatural heritage beyond her devil status, Akeno, whose controlled lightning abilities hinted at complex bloodlines, Kiba, with his sword manifestation sacred gear, and Issei, the ordinary human now housing one of the most powerful dragon entities in existence. As the morning progressed, their conversation shifted from theoretical principles to practical training considerations, culminating in Rias's proposal for a demonstration session in their underground facility. I believe seeing more of Ben's transformed capabilities would help everyone understand how we might coordinate during the raiding game, she suggested. Additionally, Issei should attempt boosted gear interaction to test the resonance the Ultimatrix detected. The underground training facility proved to be a vast space beneath the old schoolhouse, accessible through a magical transportation circle in what appeared to be a storage closet. Its dimensions defied the building's exterior proportions, a pocket dimension, Ben realized, created specifically for high-intensity supernatural training. This is incredible, Ben commented, examining the space with appreciation. The dimensional engineering alone is remarkable, maintaining stable boundaries while allowing variable energy discharge. My brother helped establish this space, Rias explained with evident pride. The wards can contain even high-class devil powers without leaking energy signatures that might attract unwanted attention. The peerage members spread out, taking positions around the chamber's perimeter while Ben and Issei remained in the center with Rias directing the demonstration. Perhaps we should begin with something familiar before testing any dragon resonance, Rias suggested. Issei hasn't seen your previous transformations yet. Ben nodded, activating the Ultimatrix. I'll start with something straightforward. He selected from his roster, and the green-blue light engulfed him. When it faded, a massive humanoid composed of red stone stood in Ben's place, magma visible through cracks in his rocky exterior and flames erupting from his head in place of hair. The Ultimatrix symbol gleamed at the center of his chest, now rimmed with blue energy. Heat blast, the transformed Ben announced, his voice carrying the crackling quality of active flame. This form allows pyrokinesis and limited flight through thermal propulsion. To demonstrate, Heat Blast generated a controlled sphere of flame above his palm, then transformed it into easily complex shapes, from simple geometric forms to a detailed miniature replica of the old schoolhouse, all rendered in living fire. The precision control is impressive, Kiba noted professionally. Most fire users in our world struggle with detailed manifestations. The dragon energy integration seems to enhance fine manipulation, Heat Blast explained, allowing the fire sculpture to dissipate. Previously, Heat Blast could generate and direct flame but with less precise control over molecular behavior. Issei watched with undisguised admiration. That would be super effective against Riser's peerage. They rely heavily on fire attacks, but you could totally counter them. Perhaps, Heat Blast acknowledged, though Riser himself showed significant fire resistance during our match. Against his peerage members, however, quote, he demonstrated a more combat-oriented application, generating focused flame jets from his hands that carved precise patterns into a practice target Kiba had established, the fire burning hot enough to slice through reinforced material like a cutting torch. After several more demonstrations of Heat Blast's capabilities, Ben reverted to human form before selecting another transformation. This one might be particularly relevant to our current discussion, he commented, activating the Omnitrix again. The transformation that followed produced a sleek, blue-scaled reptilian humanoid with aerodynamic features, extended neck, and tail. Black patterns ran along the scales in lines resembling circuit boards, periodically pulsing with energy. Three-fingered hands ended in sharp claws, while the feet were raptor-like with pronounced talons. XLR-8, the transformed Ben announced, his voice now carrying a reptilian quality. Enhanced speed, reflexes, and perceptual processing. To demonstrate, XLR-8 disappeared in a blur of motion, circling the entire training area multiple times before returning to his starting position in less than 2 seconds. Black wheel-like structures on his feet glowed with blue energy, leaving brief afterimages as he moved. This form doesn't just move quickly, XLR-8 explained. It processes information at accelerated rates, allowing navigation and decision-making at superhuman speeds. Similar to Night attributes, Kiba observed with professional interest. Though significantly faster than even my enhanced movement, the perceptual acceleration is particularly valuable. Speed without corresponding processing capability creates vulnerability. Akano studied the transformed Ben with analytical precision. Quote, the reptilian characteristics appear almost draconic in this form, more so than in your original world I assume. Correct, XLR-8 confirmed. Kinisalarans, the species this transformation is based on, typically have less pronounced scaling and no energy pathways. The dragon energy integration has enhanced those aspects, creating something between the original alien species and this world's draconic templates. After demonstrating several more transformations, including Diamond Head's crystal manipulation, Echo's sonic capabilities, and Big Chill's intangibility and cryokinesis, Ben returned to human form to address Rias's original proposal. That brings us to the question of dragon energy resonance with Issei's sacred gear, he said, turning to the eager pawn. The Omnitrix suggested potential synchronization, but I'm not sure exactly how that would manifest. Issei stepped forward, materializing the boosted gear, a red gauntlet covering his left forearm with a green jewel embedded at its center. D-Drake has been unusually quiet since you arrived, he admitted. Normally he comments on powerful beings we encounter, but with you, he's been observing. The dragon within your sacred gear is conscious? Ben asked, fascinated by the concept. Yeah, though he only speaks to me directly sometimes. Mostly when there's danger or when another powerful dragon is nearby. Issei looked at his gauntlet with mild frustration, which makes his silence about you even weirder. The Omnitrix suddenly activated without Ben's prompting, its interface displaying unusual patterns as it established some form of connection with the boosted gear. The green jewel in Issei's gauntlet illuminated in response. Power recognized. A deep, ancient voice emerged from the sacred gear. Chaos lineage, dimensional variant. Interesting. Everyone stared at the gauntlet in surprise, even Issei. D-Drake, the young devil questioned. You can sense what Ben is. The new draconic signature carries familiar yet foreign patterns, the dragon's voice rumbled. Connected to Tiamat's chaos lineage, yet structured through technological means rather than biological inheritance. A scientific dragon, one might say. I'm not actually a dragon, Ben clarified automatically. A sound like amused rumbling emerged from the gauntlet. Perhaps not by origin, but by energy integration, increasingly so. The device bound to your being has recognized compatible patterns and adapted accordingly. Clever technology. The Omnitrix's interface shifted again, displaying what appeared to be a communication protocol. Draconic consciousness interface established. Initiating information exchange. Your device wishes to understand sacred gear mechanics, DXD explained to Ben. While I examine its transformation principles. A mutually beneficial arrangement, if you permit it. Ben looked to Rias, who nodded encouragement. It seems safe enough, and potentially valuable for understanding both systems better. All right, Ben agreed, extending his wrist toward Issei's gauntlet. Information exchange approved. As the Omnitrix and boosted gear connected more directly, energy patterns flowed visibly between them, green from the sacred gear, green-blue from the Omnitrix, occasionally interspersed with threads of iridescent dragon energy that seemed to facilitate deeper communication levels. Fascinating, Rias murmured, observing the process. They're establishing metaphysical compatibility parameters. After several minutes, the connection stabilized into a steady pulse between the two devices. DXD's voice emerged again, now addressing both Ben and Issei. Compatibility confirmed. The dimensional dragon transformation can indeed synchronize with boosted gear energy. Such synchronization would temporarily merge attributes, enhancing both the transformation's dimensional manipulation and the boosted gear's power amplification. That sounds beneficial, Kiba noted, but also potentially dangerous if uncontrolled. Indeed, DXD confirmed, the combined energy output would exceed standard containment parameters. Controlled testing is advised before combat application. Ben considered the implications. I'm still learning to control the dimensional dragon form. Adding another variable might be risky, yet potentially necessary, Rias pointed out. If we face Riser's complete peerage, having access to enhanced capabilities could prove decisive. Before they could discuss further, the entire training facility shuddered as warning sigils illuminated along its boundaries. A magical communication circle materialized in the center of the room, displaying Grayfia's face with unusual urgency. Lady Rias, she spoke without preamble, multiple unauthorized entry attempts detected at dimensional boundaries surrounding Devil territory. Energy signatures suggest targeted probing specifically for the interdimensional visitor's unique pattern. Rias' expression shifted immediately to serious focus. Location: 7 distinct breach attempts within the last hour, primarily concentrated around your territory boundaries. Countermeasures deployed, but the attempts are becoming more sophisticated. Lord Searzex requests your peerage secure the visitor while defense forces assess the situation. Ben stepped forward. These aren't random incursions, are they? Someone's looking specifically for me. Grayfia's silver eyes fixed on him with professional assessment. Correct. The energy signatures suggest knowledge of your specific dimensional frequency. They're tracking you with increasing precision. The demonstration match, Akano realized. Multiple factions observed Ben's capabilities. Someone decided they wanted access to those powers directly. Or the Omnitrix itself, Ben added grimly. It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to acquire it by force. Grayfia's expression remained composed despite the urgency. Lord Searzex has authorized full defensive protocols. A transportation circle will bring you to secure facilities immediately. Wait, Ben interjected. If they're tracking my dimensional frequency, moving me to important Devil facilities just puts those locations at risk. We need to understand who's attacking and what capabilities they have before deciding on countermeasures. Rias nodded agreement. Ben's right. Standard evasive protocols may not apply to interdimensional tracking methods. We need more information. Grayfia considered this briefly before responding. I will arrive personally to assess the situation within 10 minutes. Until then, maintain defensive posture and prepare for potential confrontation. The communication circle dissolved, leaving the group in momentary silence. Rias immediately took charge. Akano, establish barrier reinforcements around the old schoolhouse. Kiba, Kaneko, perimeter security. Asia, prepare healing stations. Issei, remain with Ben, your Sakura. D-Gear's resonance with his transformation may provide additional protection if needed. Everyone moved with practiced efficiency, the previous training demonstration instantly transforming into genuine combat preparation. Ben was impressed by their seamless transition and obvious experience working as a coordinated team despite their relatively recent formation. Is this a common occurrence? He asked Issei as they moved to a central position in the facility. Dimensional incursions targeting specific individuals. Not exactly, Issei replied, more serious than Ben had seen him previously. But since I awakened the boosted gear, we've dealt with various factions trying to claim sacred gear users. Fallen angels tried to kill me when my power first manifested. Ben activated the Omnitrix's scanning function, extending his own awareness of the dimensional boundaries surrounding them. The device's enhanced integration with this world's energy patterns allowed him to perceive the PR. Obing attempts Grayfia had mentioned, systematic testing of barriers at precise intervals, methodical rather than random. This is coordinated and sophisticated, he observed. Military precision with advanced dimensional knowledge. Whoever it is has resources, Issei agreed. And really wants to meet you. Meet might be a generous interpretation, Ben replied dryly. In my experience, people who breach dimensional barriers usually have acquisition rather than conversation in mind. The Omnitrix suddenly pulsed with heightened activity. Warning. Dimensional breach imminent. Multiple entry points detected. Unknown energy signature identified as artificial dragon construct. Artificial dragon construct, Issei repeated with concern. What does that mean? Before Ben could respond, Rias returned with Akino. Both radiating combat readiness. Barriers established, but something's systematically testing them with increasing power. Whatever's coming has significant resources. He Omnitrix detected something it called an artificial dragon construct, Ben informed them. Synthetic dragon energy rather than natural. Rias's eyes widened. That's concerning. Creating artificial dragon energy requires forbidden knowledge and extensive resources. Only certain research factions within the supernatural world would attempt such technology. And those factions would definitely be interested in your Omnitrix, Akino added, lightning dancing between her fingers as she prepared combat spells. The building shuddered again, more violently this time. The Omnitrix Projected warning indicators showing multiple breaches now occurring simultaneously around the property. They're not just probing anymore, Ben noted grimly. They're coming through. A transportation circle flared to life in the center of the room, and Grayfia materialized with combat-ready intensity. Her usual maid uniform had been replaced by armored attire with silver-blue protective enchantments visible across its surface. The incursion is more significant than initially assessed, she announced without preamble. Analysis confirms Chaos Brigade involvement, specifically the hero faction. Subsidiary utilizing forbidden technology. Chaos Brigade, Ben questioned. Terrorist organization comprised of multiple supernatural factions united by opposition to current world powers, Rias explained quickly. The hero faction specifically recruits humans with sacred gear abilities who believe they should rule over supernatural beings. Their interest in your device is obvious, Grayfia continued. Technology that grants multiple powerful abilities would align perfectly with their ideology of human supremacy through superior weaponry. The facility shook again as distant explosions became audible even through the dimensional barriers. Kiba's voice came through a communication circle. Perimeter breached. Humanoid constructs with artificial dragon attributes approaching from multiple vectors. How many? Rias demanded. At least 20 visible, with energy signatures suggesting more incoming, came the tense reply. Kaneko is engaging the eastern approach, but they're using coordinated tactics with ranged support. Grayfia turned to Ben with professional assessment. Your transformations represent our most versatile response capability. Recommendation. Ben appreciated her direct approach. No political maneuvering or protective instincts, just tactical acknowledgement of available resources. I have forms that can handle multiple opponents, he replied, activating the Omnitrix. But given what we're facing, something with specific counter capabilities might be more effective. The holographic interface displayed his roster, highlighting transformations WITH optimal match against the detected threat patterns. Ben selected one, and the familiar green-blue light engulfed him. When it faded, a hulking humanoid plant creature stood in his place, body comp. OSED of fibrous green material with blue-black patterns that pulsed with energy. His head resembled a flame-like growth, and multiple vine-like appendages extended from his back. "Swampfire," he announced, voice deeper and resonating with natural authority. "Plant control, regeneration, and methane manipulation." Grayfia nodded approval. "Regenerative capability counters their numerical advantage. What's your proposed deployment strategy?" Before Swampfire could respond, the ceiling above them fractured as something massive forced its way through the dimensional barriers protecting the facility. Concrete and magical wards alike shattered as a construct resembling a mechanical dragon, 15 feet long with artificial scales crafted from some dark metal, crashed into the training area. E-Construct's eyes glowed with unnatural red light, scanning the room before focusing on Ben's transformed state. Its mouth opened to reveal not biological components but sophisticated energy weapons that began charging with ominous intensity. "Primary target located," it announced in a synthetic voice. "Acquisition protocol initiated." "I don't think so," Swampfire responded, slamming his hands into the ground. Instantly, massive vines erupted from the floor, wrapping around the construct with tremendous force. The mechanical dragon struggled, its metal scales slicing through some vines on Lee to have more replace them immediately. As the construct became increasingly entangled, Swampfire generated a concentrated ball of blue-green flame in his hand. "Everyone back," he warned before who. RLING the fire sphere directly into the construct's open mouth where its weapons had been charging. The resulting explosion sent shrapnel flying throughout the room, though Rias and Akino had already established protective barriers around themselves and Issei. When the smoke cleared, the construct lay in pieces, its power core still pulsing with unstable energy. "One down," Swampfire noted grimly, "but there will be more. These are just the advance units testing our defenses." "Agreed," Grayfia concurred, examining the destroyed construct with professional assessment. "This technology Atesh high-level hero faction involvement. We should assume they've deployed their sacred gear users as field commanders." Another communication circle appeared, showing Kiba's face streaked with minor injuries. "Multiple breaches confirmed. They're deploying some kind of sacred gear nullification field at the perimeter. Our defensive boundaries are weakening. We need to take the fight to them," Rias decided. "Defensive positioning only prolongs the inevitable breach." Swampfire nodded agreement. "I'll handle the constructs. You and your peerage focus on the human operatives coordinating THM. They're likely the ones maintaining the nullification field. I will secure the primary building and provide long-range support," Grayfia stated. "Lady Rias, your peerage has authorization to engage with appropriate force." They moved with coordinated efficiency, Swampfire generating plant-based platforms that carried them upward through the shattered ceiling and back to ground level. The scene that greeted them was organized chaos, multiple mechanical dragon constructs surrounding the old schoolhouse, engaged in combat with Kiba and Kaneko at different positions, while human figures in specialized combat gear maintained formation at the perimeter, operating devices that generated visible dampening fields. There, Rias identified, pointing to a figure standing apart from the others. A young man with light brown hair wearing what appeared to be ornate armor with a sacred gear gauntlet different from Issei's. "Georg, Hero Faction's strategic operations leader. He's coordinating the attack." Swampfire assessed the battlefield with tactical precision. "I need to clear these constructs before you can reach the human operatives. Time for an evolution." The Ultimatrix symbol on his chest expanded, projecting 4 spikes as energy coursed through his plant-based form. His body reconfigured, becoming more armored and developed, with the flame-like head transforming into a Blasso Med structure and his overall mass increasing significantly. "Ultimate Swampfire," the evolved form announced, now standing nearly 10 feet tall with blue flame visible beneath the hardened plant armor covering his body. Without hesitation, Ultimate Swampfire thrust both hands forward, generating not simple flames but concentrated beams of blue-white fire that sliced through 2 constructs simultaneously. The enhanced pyrokinetic control allowed him to curve the flame beams around obstacles, targeting multiple enemies without endangering allies. "Impressive," Grayfia noted with professional approval before launching her own attack, ice spikes of extraordinary density that shattered another construct's power core on impact. Rias turned to her peerage members. "Akino, provide aerial coverage. Issei, Focus on breaking through the nullification field with boosted gear. Asia. Remain protected but ready to heal as needed. Ultimate Swampfire advanced steadily through the construct forces. His enhanced regeneration instantly repairing damage from their energy weapons while his controlled flames systematically disabled their power cores. The dragon-enhanced transformation demonstrated unprecedented precision, allowing him to engage multiple opponents while creating protective barriers of rapidly growing plants around the more vulnerable members of Rias's peerage. As the battle intensified, Ben noticed a pattern in the attackers' movements. They weren't simply trying to overwhelm with numbers, but systematically herding him toward a specific position where multiple dampening fields overlapped. Recognizing the tactical intent, he deliberately altered his approach, focusing destructive force on the human operators maintaining those fields. "They're trying to force me into a containment matrix," he called out to Rias, who was unleashing devastating energy attacks of her own, crimson-black power that disintegrated constructs on contact. "Standard hero faction capture protocol," she confirmed, redirecting her attacks to support his new vector. "They want the Ultimatrix intact." The battlefield dynamics shifted as the defenders took more aggressive positioning. Heba manifested multiple swords simultaneously, each with different elemental properties, creating a whirlwind of blades that shredded through mechanical components with surgical precision. Kaneko, despite her small size, demonstrated terrifying physical strength, literally tearing constructs apart with her bare hands. Akeno hovered above, raining lightning strikes with sadistic precision while maintaining a serene smile that somehow made the destruction more disturbing. Even Issei, the newest member of the peerage, contributed significantly, his boosted gear amplifying his physical capabilities as he systematically targeted the dampening field generators. The coordinated defense was proving effective, pushing back the initial wave of constructs, when a new dimensional breach occurred, larger and more stable than the previous entries. From within it emerged three individuals whose power signatures registered as significantly higher than the standard operatives. Hero faction leadership, Grayfia identified tensely. Cao, Georg, and Leonardo. The central figure, a young man carrying an ornate spear that radiated ancient power, surveyed the battlefield with calculating eyes before speaking. "Impressive resistance," he acknowledged, "particularly from our primary acquisition target. The transformative capabilities exceed our initial assessment." Ultimate Swampfire turned to face this new threat directly. "I'm going to assume you're Cao. The spear's a bit on the nose, isn't it?" The man smiled slightly, apparently appreciating the reference to his namesake. "The true Longinus tends to make subtlety unnecessary. Though I admit, your knowledge of our world's legends suggests quick adaptation for an interdimensional visitor." "I've had a crash course in your world's power players," Ultimate Swampfire replied, maintaining combat readiness while engaging in the apparent negotiation. "Though, terrorist organization targeting people with unique abilities seems depressingly consistent across dimensions." "Terrorist is such a limited perspective," Cao responded. "We prefer evolutionary catalysts. Your device, for instance, it represents exactly the kind of human empowering technology our faction seeks to promote. Imagine a world where humans could access multiple sacred gear-level abilities without supernatural bloodlines or divine intervention." "I'm imagining a world where you don't send mechanical dragons to smash through buildings and kidnap people," Ultimate Swampfire countered. "Call me old-fashioned." Throughout this exchange, Ben noticed Grayfia and Rias subtly repositioning their forces, preparing for the inevitable resumption of hostilities. The hero faction leaders similarly adjusted their stances, the one identified as Georg establishing what appeared to be a more sophisticated version of the dampening field, while Leonardo, a younger boy with disturbing hollow eyes, manifested shadowy creatures at the perimeter. "A direct approach seemed necessary given the competing interests surrounding you," Cao continued conversationally. "Devils, dragons, yokai, all seeking to claim your potential for their factions. We simply offer partnership based on your human origin rather than supernatural subjugation." Ultimate Swampfire maintained his composed facade while analyzing potential countermeasures. "Interesting pitch. Lacks credibility. When delivered during an armed assault, but points for presentation." Cao's expression hardened slightly. "This negotiation was merely courtesy. The acquisition proceeds regardless of your current preference." Georg, The mage-like figure stepped forward, activating multiple magical circles simultaneously. Dimension lost. Expand containment protocol. Mist-like energy began spreading across the battlefield, creating what Ben recognized as dimensional isolation boundaries, cutting them off from potential reinforcements while establishing conditions for extraction. Now, Rias commanded, and her peerage executed their prepared countermove. Akeno unleashed not just lightning but holy lightning, a golden-white energy that shattered through the expanding mist barriers with surprising effectiveness. Simultaneously, Kiba drove his sword into the ground, creating a network of blades that erupted beneath the hero faction leaders, disrupting their formation. Kaneko launched herself at Leonardo with frightening speed, preventing him from fully manifesting his shadow creatures. Ultimate Swampfire seized the opportunity, transforming in a flash of green-blue light. Where the plant-based warrior had stood moments before, a new form appeared, a ghost-like entity with a single eye, wrapped in chains that pulsed with blue-white energy. Ghost Freak, the transformed Ben announced in his ethereal voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Let's see how your dimensional traps handle something already halfway into another plane of existence. The mist barriers passed harmlessly. SSLY through Ghost Freak's intangible form as he moved with impossible speed toward Cao Cao, passing through the spear wielder's defensive stance to temporarily materialize directly in front of him. Impossible, Cao Cao muttered, attempting to bring the true Longinus to bear against this unexpected threat. No sacred gear has this level of phase-shifting capability. Not a sacred gear, Ghost Freak replied, his single eye glowing with intensifying energy. Something much older. Before Cao Cao could respond, Ghost Freak unleashed a concentrated beam of spectral energy from his eye, striking not the hero faction leader but his spear, specifically, the connection point between the weapon and its wielder. The energy disrupted the sacred gear's synchronization temporarily, causing Cao Cao to stagger backward as his primary power source fluctuated. This momentary advantage allowed Grayfia to enter the confrontation directly, silver energy cascading around her in patterns of such complexity. Why that the very air seemed to crystallize in her presence. Hero faction leadership, she stated with cold authority, you have violated multiple territorial treaties and attempted unauthorized acquisition of individuals under House Grimoire protection. Withdrawal is recommended before underworld reinforcements arrive. Georg looked to Cao Cao, who had recovered his stance but was eyeing Ghost Freak with new wariness. After a moment's calculation, he nodded slightly. A strategic repositioning seems appropriate, Cao Cao acknowledged, his casual tone belying the tension in his posture. Thog, HR interest in the transformation device remains unchanged. Noted and rejected, Rias replied with aristocratic firmness. Any future approaches should utilize diplomatic channels unless you pre-fare a formal declaration of hostilities against House Grimoire. Cao Cao smiled with genuine amusement. Your house's reputation for collecting unique individuals appears well earned, Rias Grimoire. We'll withdraw, for now. He turned his attention to Ghost Freak, who maintained his intangible state. Our next conversation may occur under different circumstances, holder of forms. Consider our offer E4 aligning permanently with devil interests. A transportation circle formed around the hero faction leaders, more complex than standard devil versions and incorporating elements Ben recognized as dimensional stabilizers. Before departing, Cao Cao made one final observation. The dragon energy integration proceeds faster than you realize, he said directly to Ben. When the transformation becomes permanent rather than optional, remember who offered partnership and who sought ownership. With that cryptic statement, the hero faction leadership vanished, their remaining constructs and and operatives retreating through smaller portals that closed quickly behind them. The battlefield fell momentarily silent, the sudden cessation of combat creating an almost disorienting calm. Ghost Freak returned to human form. Ben immediately checking on the others. Everyone okay? Rias nodded, though her expression remained tense. No serious injuries. They were clearly focused on acquisition rather than elimination. That was hero faction leadership, Akeno noted with unusual seriousness. Their direct involvement indicates how valuable they consider your device, and by extension, you. The spear wielder, Ben asked. His sacred gear is significant. The true Longinus is considered the strongest sacred gear in existence, Grayfia explained, her battle attire dissolving back into Her standard uniform as the immediate threat receded. The original spear that pierced the biblical Christ, capable of killing gods and Buddha. Ben whistled softly. And he leads a terrorist organization. Wonderful. Kiba and Kaneko rejoined them, having completed perimeter verification. Asia immediately began treating their minor injuries while Issei deactivated his boosted gear with visible exhaustion. They'll be back, Kaneko stated simply, accepting Asia's healing with stoic appreciation. Undoubtedly, Grayfia agreed. This encounter represented a preliminary assessment rather than their primary acquisition attempt. Their retreat was too organized for genuine defeat. Rias turned to Ben with concern. Cao Cao's final comment about permanent transformation, what did he mean? Ben hesitated, unsure how much to reveal about his morning conversation with Tiamat and the unsettling implications about his changing nature. Before he could decide, Grayfia provided unexpected support. Such matters should perhaps be discussed in more secure surroundings, she suggested. The dimensional barriers will require significant reconstruction before this location can be considered properly defended. Agreed, Rias nodded. We should relocate temporarily. My family maintains several secure properties specifically designed for situations requiring enhanced protection. As they prepared for departure, Ben found himself briefly alone with Grayfia, who regarded him with calculating assessment. You controlled your transformations with remarkable precision during the confrontation, she observed. Particularly the intangible form used against Cao Cao. Experience, Ben replied simply. I've been doing this since I was 10. Indeed, her silver eyes studied him with penetrating intensity. And your decision to target the connection between wielder and sacred gear rather than Cao Cao himself demonstrated uncommon tactical insight. Most combatants would have attacked the human threat directly. Ben shrugged slightly. In my experience, separating powerful individuals from their power sources is usually more effective than trying to overpower them directly. Especially when they're clearly more familiar with their abilities than I am with my transformations in this dimension. Something almost like approval flickered across Grayfia's composed features. A mature tactical approach. Lord Searsex will be interested in your assessment of hero faction capabilities based on this encounter. Happy to provide it, Ben assured her. Though I'm more concerned about preventing a repeat performance. If they're tracking my specific dimensional frequency, then conventional protection methods may prove insufficient, Grayfia completed his thought. Which is why I recommend you accompany me to a specialized research facility after briefing Lord Searsex. My own background includes dimensional theory study that may prove relevant to your situation. Ben raised an eyebrow in surprise. I didn't realize the strongest queen was also a dimensional theorist. The faintest suggestion of a smile touched Grayfia's lips. There are many aspects to serving as queen. Of Lucifer beyond battlefield capability. Interdimensional mechanics falls under defense against external threats, a responsibility I take quite seriously. Before Ben could respond, Rias approached. Having completed evacuation arrangements, we're ready to depart. Grayfia, I assume you'll report directly to Onisama. Yes, after ensuring proper security protocols at the relocation site. Grayfia's professional demeanor returned seamlessly. I've also arranged for Ben to visit the Dimensional Research Division following the initial briefing, with your approval. Rias looked momentarily surprised but nodded agreement. Of course, his dimensional frequency seems to be the targeting mechanism. Understanding and potentially masking it would be highest priority. As transportation circles formed around their respective groups, Ben found himself reevaluating his understanding of Grayfia. Beneath the perfectly composed professional exterior apparently lay unexpected intellectual depth and strategic thinking that went well beyond combat capability. Her interest in the dimensional aspects of his situation suggested perspectives he hadn't considered, and potentially, allies beyond what he'd initially recognized. The transportation magic activated, shifting them through dimensional space to their temporary sanctuary. As the new location materialized around them, an elegant traditional Japanese mansion situated in a secluded mountain valley, Ben couldn't help but reflect on Cao Cao's parting statement. The dragon energy integration proceeds faster than you realize. When the transformation becomes permanent rather than optional. The implication aligned too closely with Tiamat's earlier observations for comfort. Was his human form truly remaining unchanged between transformations? Or was each activation of the dimensional dragon template accelerating a more fundamental evolution? Most concerning, was this process still reversible, or had he already crossed thresholds from which there was no return? The Ultimatrix pulsed quietly on his wrist, its blue-green glow occasionally threaded with iridescent patterns that seemed more pronounced than before the battle. Whatever changes were occurring, Ben suspected they had just accelerated significantly. The secure estate proved to be far more than its traditional exterior suggested. Behind paper screens and tatami floors lay sophisticated magical defenses, monitoring systems, and communication arrays that would have impressed even Azimuth himself. Rias explained that the property had served House Grayfia for centuries as a diplomatic retreat when sensitive negotiations required absolute privacy. While her peerage settled into the estate's various wings, establishing security protocols and recovery stations, Ben found himself in a secluded garden pavilion with Rias Grayfia and a magical communication projection of Sirzek's. The Satan's expression was serious as he reviewed the preliminary report of the hero faction incursion. Direct involvement from Cao Cao indicates their highest level of interest, Sirzek noted, his usual casual demeanor replaced by sharp analytical focus. The true Longinus wielder rarely participates in initial acquisition attempts. They specifically referenced the transformation technology as their primary interest, Ben confirmed. Though Cao Cao seemed equally interested in the dragon energy integration. Understandably, Sirzek replied, human-usable technology that grants multiple supernatural abilities would fundamentally alter their strategic position against other factions. Particularly if it can incorporate dragon-class power without the limitations of sacred gears. Grayfia, who had remained standing slightly behind Sirzek's projection, stepped forward. The targeting methodology suggests they've developed means to track specific dimensional frequencies, technology previously believed beyond their capabilities. Unless they've acquired outside assistance, Rias suggested. Perhaps from the Chaos Brigade's other factions. Sirzek nodded thoughtfully. A concerning possibility. The old Satan faction or the Magician rebels could potentially provide such capabilities. He turned his attention directly to Ben. This leads to our most pressing concern, your safety and the security of the Ultimatrix technology. While House Grayfia can provide significant protection, this incident demonstrates that conventional measures may prove insufficient against determined acquisition attempts. I was thinking the same thing, Ben acknowledged. If they're tracking my dimensional frequency directly, changing locations only buys limited time. Which is why I've authorized Grayfia to provide you access to the Dimensional Research Division, Sirzek continued. Their work on frequency masking and dimensional anchoring may offer more permanent solutions. There's another option we should consider, Rias interjected carefully. The rating me against Riser is scheduled for next week. If Ben were officially registered as a temporary household consultant for House Grayfia, he would fall under the formal protection provisions of the rating game accords. Sirzek raised an eyebrow, clearly recognizing his sister's strategic maneuvering. An interesting proposition. Rating game participants receive special protections under Devil Law, including immunity from external interference during the preparation period. It would provide legal protection beyond what guest status offers, Grayfia confirmed. Though it would also formally IGN Ben with House Grayfia in the eyes of other factions. Which might create its own complications, Ben noted, understanding the political implications. Though at this point, remaining unaligned seems increasingly impractical. Rias turned to him with genuine concern beneath her strategic thinking. I wouldn't suggest this if I saw better alternatives. The rating game protocols provide some of the strongest protections in Devil Society specifically because they prevent external interference in house competitions. And coincidentally provide you with expert transformation assistance for your upcoming match against Riser. Sirzek observed with subtle amusement. 2 birds, 1 stone, Rias acknowledged without pretense. Though Ben's safety remains the primary consideration. Ben considered the proposal carefully. Formal alignment with House Grayfia would indeed provide additional protection while he researched return options, but it would also further entangle him in this mentions politics, something experience had taught him to approach cautiously. What exactly would temporary household consultant status entail? He asked finally. A formal but limited contract, Grayfia explained. You would be bound to support House Grimoire's interests specifically regarding the rating game, with corresponding protections and privileges, but without the permanent obligation of peerage membership or exclusive service agreements. Essentially, you help us prepare for and participate in the rating game, and in return receive official protection status that even the hero faction would hesitate to violate. Rias clarified. After the game concludes, the arrangement can be terminated or renegotiated as circumstances dictate. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.